Chapter 610. You can search, Poisonous Wife, in Baidu. You can search for the latest chapter. My Fate Returning Mirror. An ear-piercing wail reverberated throughout the hall. Bai Xiu stepped forward and trembled as he fumbled for his glasses, only to find that the frame had been ripped through. Why is the mirror gone? Ling Li froze in place, and he was still trying to recall the picture he saw. But it was just an ordinary black dress, and he didn't even see her figure. How could he find it in the sea of people? Ling Li clenched his fists gradually. He didn't regret it, but a strong sense of surprise was brewing. At least, she really reincarnated. Compared with being destroyed, this result was much better. It was enough to give him infinite motivation to continue to track it down. Boy. Bai Xiu came to himself and patted Ling Li on the shoulder when he saw the irrepressible excitement on Ling Li's face. He said, I have made it very clear. Even if you find the reincarnation, she won't remember you at all. She may even be a dying old woman now. Do you still want to say anything? Yes, why not? Ling Li came to himself and looked at Bai Xiu's face. He said seriously, as long as it is her soul, no matter she is old or ugly, or changes into other appearances, I miss her and want to see her. The fate returning mirror is broken. I'm sorry, Mr. Bai. Can you tell me if there are similar treasures in other holy sects? Crazy. Crazy. Bai Xiu turned around and waved his hand. How could the son of the Lord of Qingshui Circle be defeated by a woman? For a woman who might have completely forgotten him, he ignored everything. Mr. Bai, I beg you, Ling Li tightened his lips and was about to kneel down. Bai Xiu was shocked and turned back to stop him. No, you will shorten my life. How can the son of the great emperor worship me, a common man? Ling Li was stunned. It turned out that Bai Xiu knew much more than he thought. Listen to me first. The fate-returning mirror can't be broken for no reason. Bai Xiu sighed and continued, now I can think of two possibilities. One is that the reincarnation has already cultivated to the point where he can sense the life-returning mirror's detection. Naturally, he won't have a good attitude when he's being spied on for no reason. So, it's reasonable for him to destroy the life-returning mirror from afar. At this point, Bai Xiu clicked his tongue and said, but I feel that this is unlikely. In order to reach the point of perceiving and destroying the life-returning mirror in the air, one must at least be in the early Desheng stage, which was the cultivation base of the half-emperor realm. Su Li's reincarnation is no more than 1,000 years old. It's too exaggerated. What's the second possibility? Ling Li had a faint speculation in his heart, and his eyes flashed with some expectations. Looks like you've guessed it too. Bai Xiu sat down on the edge of the mirror, and after a moment of silence, he sighed, the spirit of reincarnation mirror is probably not dead. Ling Li's eyes brightened, and his thoughts turned quickly. Not bad. Bai Xiu nodded affirmatively, the life-returning mirror is not only broken, but also disappeared for no reason. I'm 70% sure that the spirit of reincarnation mirror instinctively plundered it to recover its injury. After all, the injury of the broken mirror is almost destroyed, and it's not so easy to destroy. At this point, Bai Xiu frowned, however, even if I tell you this, no one knows the whereabouts of reincarnation mirror. No one knows the whereabouts of reincarnation mirror. How are you going to trace it? It doesn't matter. I already know who I'm going to find. Ling Li looked firm and flew away without saying anything. The mirror of reincarnation mirror had always been with him until the Tianjiao battle. If there was anyone in the world who was most likely to know the whereabouts of reincarnation mirror, it was only her. Who is it? You should at least tell this old man. After Bai Xiu finished speaking, Ling Li was nowhere to be seen, and he couldn't help but sigh sadly. Nowadays, why don't they know how to respect the elderly? Su Jiuzhou is like this, and so is Ling Li. The moral degeneration of the world is getting worse. Alas. Early the next morning, Su Li and Gong Daden appeared at the back door of Holy Snow Sect. Gong Daden released a carrier rune and waited in the same place. Su Li looked strange and asked in a low voice, "Is this how you enter Holy Snow Sect? Otherwise?" Gong Daden rolled his eyes and whispered, "Do I still go in from the gate? I'm not a disciple of Holy Snow Sect. Fortunately, I'm familiar with the handyman supervisor of this mountain. Don't worry. Follow me in, and I'll lead the way to whoever you want to find. I remember the way inside clearly." "Well. Okay." Su Li nodded. Compared with her previous method, it might be less noisy. Not long after, a fat female cultivator wearing a thick cotton-padded robe ran over with a face full of joy, leaving behind a trail of dust along the way. Her squinted eyes were even a bit moist as she rushed over and hugged Gong Daden. "How dare you? You finally come to see me. Ahem, let go of me. I'm going to suffocate." Gong Daden struggled in the fat. Even Su Li couldn't help shuddering when she saw this scene. It seemed that the relationship between her and the handyman supervisor was really familiar. "You are the big sister of boldness. Wow! You are as beautiful as boldness. Don't worry. I'll take care of your joining the sect." The handyman supervisor patted his huge chest and led the two into Holy Snow Sect, at this moment, in the lost city of Yinyang region. Ling Li looked at the empty headquarters of the Linli building in front of him. His cold face was a little dull, and he was stunned for a long time. Where were they? Where did Ling Mo and others go? Why didn't he receive any message? Ling Li calmed himself down and his eyes slightly sank. He floated into the study where Ling Mo usually stayed, and skillfully opened the addendum hidden behind the tactical matrix on the wall with a secret method. The addendum was also a study. The dust-removing tactical matrix was still running, and it was very clean. The layout was exactly the same as the one in the east courtyard of Ling Mansion in Reincarnation Mirror. Ling Li sat down at the desk and habitually glanced at the rattan chair under the bookshelf. Then he picked up the carrier rune left by Ling Mo on the desk and opened it. "Child, I heard that you have left Xingtian Shrine and your whereabouts are uncertain. I'm not sure when you will come back. The situation in Qingshui Circle has changed greatly. We don't need to hide. Ni Sect is the best place to go." Ling Li read it halfway and laughed angrily. He threw the carrier rune aside. Ling Mo, the bastard, actually took the Linli building to Ni Sect? Something is wrong. Ling Mo is a blockhead. It's impossible for him to make decisions on his own, unless someone egged him on. Ling Li sat quietly at the desk, and his eyes flickered constantly. After a long time, he smiled coldly. "Don't you need to hide?" "Oh. Su Jojo, you really have a good plan. That's good. It will be more convenient to ask about your whereabouts." He got up, grabbed the carrier rune, and turned away. If he could find Li, he would give the whole Linli building to Su Jojo. In the handyman's house of Holy Snow Sect. "What? Are you looking for the first Holy Sun?" When the handyman's supervisor heard this, his face immediately turned pale. He held Su Li's hand tightly. "Big sister, don't hurt me. Is he the person we are qualified to see? If the first Holy Sun knows that I deliberately let outsiders in, I will be skinned alive." Su Li smiled and glanced at Gong Daden, who looked unnatural. "Daden, come out and talk with me." Gong Daden stood up reluctantly. "Big sister, why are you looking for the first Holy Sun? Come out and talk." Su Li pulled Gong Daden to the door. She turned back and said, "Don't worry. She and I will not betray you." The handyman's supervisor nodded with a sad face. The wind and snow in the mountain carried the smell of fresh vegetation, which was very fresh. It also sobered Gong Daden's feverish mind a little. He squeezed his eyebrows and muttered, "Big sister, do you guess something?" Su Li smiled slightly. "Take me to see the first Holy Sun." "You really guessed it." Gong Daden curled his lips. "I don't have a good relationship with that big fool. My Ni Sect's jade token was stolen from him." Su Li shook her head and laughed. "Let's go." "Oh, wait, let me change my clothes." Gong Daden shyly turned into a white light. In a few seconds, she changed from a cold and arrogant female practitioner in black to a girl from a respectable family with light makeup. However, she was reluctant to remove the lotus mark at the corner of her eyes that she had just learned. She led Su Li through the Handyman Mountain and came to the main mountain peak. When passers-by and disciples saw her, they were all frightened and avoided her, not to mention that someone came up to question Su Li's identity. It seems to be more hidden in this way. This thought flashed in Su Li's mind, but she saw Gong Daden still took her to the foot of a small mountain. This is the Mount of the First Holy Sun. Big sister, since you know the First Holy Sun, you can go up alone. I have no problem. Su Li nodded. In the eyes of Gong Daden, who was greatly relieved, she reached out and pointed at the black shadow that was flying down the mountain, but it seems that it is too late for you to leave now. My God! Gong Daden looked at Lu Xian, who flew down from the top of the mountain in horror. She was so scared that she turned around and ran away. But before she ran far, she was caught back by Lu Xian, who was shocked and angry. You still know to come back? Do you know how worried Brother Yan and I are about you? Grand Elder Qing is going crazy looking for you. Lu Xian grabbed Gong Daden with one hand to prevent her from running away, and released the carrier rune. After doing all this, he had time to pay attention to the woman who had been staying beside Gong Daden. But he was completely stunned at this sight. He didn't even know when he let Gong Daden go. Gong Daden was happy and was about to run away, but Lu Xian's next words made her not want to leave. Su Jojo. Grand Elder Su, why are you here? Lu Xian was shocked and spoke respectfully. His expression was a little cramped. At this moment, facing Su Jojo, he had already put away his original mentality. Su Jojo was an evildoer who pretended to be weak, and she was also a big shot who could be on an equal footing with the grand elders of their sections. It's me. Why don't you invite me to go up and have a seat? Su Li nodded with a chuckle. Gong Daden turned his head stiffly. When he saw Su Li's extremely natural demeanor, his mouth suddenly turned into an O shape. Chapter 611. You can search for Poisonous Wife in Baidu. Search for the latest chapter. A spiritual feast was soon set up on the Great Holy Sun's Mount. Lu Xian invited Su Li to take a seat, and then he sat down. Gong Daden sat next to Lu Xian, huddling under the table like a quail. His cheeks were so red that blood could drip out. What could be more shameful than pretending to be an idol in front of him? He was going to die. Lu Xian shook his head helplessly when he saw Gong Daden didn't come out from the table. He looked up and apologized, Grand Elder Su, I'm sorry. Gong Daden is very naughty and ignorant. If there is any neglect, please forgive me. It's okay. Su Li smiled lightly, if it weren't for her, how could I enter your sect silently? After all, if we leave even the slightest trace, the lackeys of the Fate Palace might follow the scent and come after us. Lu Xian looked serious and said solemnly, my ancestor has always wanted to talk with you in detail. If you don't mind, please stay for a day. I will inform my ancestor to come out and meet you. Thank you for your hospitality. Su Li nodded slightly and glanced at Gong Daden. What is the status of this girl in the Holy Snow sect? Who named her? Lu Xian said with a smile, how dare you? She is the niece of Grand Elder Qing. She grew up with me, but she is naughty and didn't practice hard. As for her name, it was given by her biological parents. I don't know why she got this name. I'm just curious. Su Li drank up the wine in the cup and said slowly, this girl is very cute. How about letting her accompany me for a day? Really? Gong Daden immediately came out from under the table. His eyes were bright and full of surprise. Lu Xian was amused and helpless, quickly thanked Grand Elder Su. It's your blessing to have her guidance. Ordinary people can't ask for it. Thank you, Grand Elder Su. Gong Daden immediately accepted the advice and grinned from ear to ear. After a while, the banquet was over. Gong Daden took Su Li to the guest hall of the highest standard. It turns out that you are Senior Su. I'm so slow. Gong Daden stuck out her tongue and blushed. She looked sweet and cute. It doesn't matter. I originally thought that you were a swindler, but you were able to stand out bravely in front of the Azura sex assassins. Although it is very foolish, it doesn't stop me from admiring you. Gong Daden's face turned even redder. Looking at her, Su Li knew that this girl was not guarded against her, so she asked casually, "You said that you have entered the reincarnation mirror. Do you remember what happened there?" "Of course I remember." Gong Daden had a matter-of-fact expression on his face. Then, he whispered in embarrassment, "Actually, my natal porcelain was also swindled." Su Li was slightly stunned, and then showed a strange look. Gong Daden was a little bashful and continued, "Don't laugh at me. I don't like cultivation, but I love trickery. After deceiving for so many years, I learned a lot of secret skills. Among them, some fools in the holy sects were fooled. About 1,200 years ago, I deceived the life-bound porcelain and sneaked into the reincarnation mirror. You are young and have never been to the reincarnation mirror, but it doesn't matter. There was nothing fun in that world. Everything would change according to the main character, and everything else was secondary. For example, Speaking of this, Gong Daden was so aggrieved that she almost shed tears. At first, I didn't know where the main character was. I didn't keep up with the main team, and I didn't even mix in a supporting role. At most, I was a passerby, and I didn't show up. Later, I was found by my aunt and was forcibly fished out by her. I had been floating in the reincarnation mirror and didn't become a human at all. So, I didn't die and remember everything." Su Li nodded slightly. "The trip to the reincarnation mirror is really not good for you. Your aunt is right to do so." Gong Daden was suddenly unhappy. "It's because the Gong family looked down on my aunt. Otherwise, I wouldn't need to cheat the life-bound porcelain and make it so nondescript." "Gong family?" Su Li's eyes were slightly fixed, and she continued to ask calmly, "Is it the Gong family of holy sects?" "Yes, my aunt and I are both from the same branch of the Gong family. Later, I don't know what happened, but my aunt took me away from the Gong family and came here." Gong Daden nodded and explained, "I heard that the Gong family also arranged the heavenly talents of their family to go there. Their names are Gong Min and Gong Xiangjuan, and they are hundreds of years older than me. They both came out of the reincarnation mirror alive 1,000 years ago, but then the two sisters turned against each other, and both were injured. They were killed by the latecomers. They deserved it." Gong Daden covered his mouth and laughed. "These two are probably the two surviving heavenly talents of the reincarnation mirror who were the most miserable when they came out. Gong Min and Gong Xiangjuan." Su Li's eyes flickered slightly. She naturally remembered these two people. To be exact, she remembered all the people who had contact with her in the reincarnation mirror, but even the Skystar Valley couldn't record the state of all the survivors comprehensively. Perhaps Gong Min and Gong Xiangjuan didn't have a sense of existence, so they were not investigated by the Skystar Valley. After solving the mystery, Su Li no longer asked about the reincarnation mirror, but really spent some effort to teach Gong Daden some small secret methods, which could be regarded as a return. Time passed very quickly, and it was the next day in the blink of an eye. Lu Xian, the first holy son, came as scheduled. "Senior Su, please come with me," Lu Xian said while pointing the way. "Our holy snow sect is similar to the Tianhe holy sect. We are from a family, so the core elders and the grand elder are all surnamed Lu. But there are also exceptions, such as Aunt Daden, who is the grand elder of offerings from outside." Lu Xian briefly introduced the Holy Snow sect. After a while, the two stopped in front of an ice cave covered with ice and snow. "Elder Chun is the grand elder of our Holy Snow sect. He usually stays in isolation to slow down his aging. He has woken up this morning and has been waiting for you for a long time." I won't go in. Senior Su, please." Su Li nodded and stepped into the dimly lit ice cave. The ice cave was not very deep. But after a dozen breaths, Su Li saw a stooped old man in a white robe sitting on the Xian ice futon. His hair and beard were all white, and his face was old, revealing an aura of old age. In front of the old man in a white robe, there was a Xian ice futon, which seemed to be newly placed. Su Li approached and sat down cross-legged. Her tone was slightly respectful. Su Jojo pays respect to you, senior. The old man in a white robe's turbid eyes turned with Su Li's movements. Then his lips didn't open and close, but his voice came from the ice cave. Don't be so polite, Su Jojo. Regardless of the realm and strength, you and I are of the same generation. Don't call me senior. Su Li's eyes narrowed slightly, and then she smiled and nodded. Elder Chun, you have good eyesight. Lu Chun waved his withered right hand. I'm old and my cultivation can't go up. When I'm bored, I always learn some unorthodox skills. It's better than nothing. As he said, he waved his hand and laid out a stone surface covered with ice and snow. There were several plates of frozen pastries on it. This is the unique ice spiritual cake of our Holy Snow sect. You can try it. Elder Chun, you're welcome. Su Li pulled out an ice cake as hard as iron from the ice and snow and held it in her hand. As the saying goes, old people become shrewd. Elder Chun should have guessed the purpose of my coming to the Holy Snow sect this time. It's nothing more than the Fate Palace. Lu Chun's eyes drooped. The Fate Ancestor is like a devil and a ghost. Our Holy Snow sect has always disdained to associate with him. The appearance of your NI sect is exactly what I want. People in Chimo Circle are a group of poor people. It's a pity that our Holy Snow sect has no say in whether they stay or go. Fortunately, Ancestor Blazing Sky makes the Fate Ancestor fear us. Otherwise, the Fate Palace would have occupied the entire Qingshui Circle. It seems that Elder Chun knows a lot about the Fate Palace. Of course, we are enemies. How can we not know each other? There was a trace of worry in Elder Chun's eyes. Although you have temporarily gained a firm foothold, the jade token of the top of the Tianjiao list is only temporary. There must be other ways to make the Fate Palace fear so that NI sect can continue to exist. Today, Lu Chun said more words than in the previous 1,000 years. But when he met the right person, he was willing to spend his energy to help the new force. Elder Chun is right. Su Li looked humble. I rashly visit your sect. Part of the purpose is to ask you seniors for advice. Another part of the purpose is to find out how many holy sects are on our side. How to make the Fate Palace fear us. Our Holy Snow sect relies on the foundation left by the old ancestor. This point, your NI sect doesn't have, so I can't answer you. But I can tell you another question. Elder Chun coughed and transmitted his voice. The sects that oppose the Fate Palace are much fewer than you think. On the surface, there are 50 holy sects on the side of the Fate Palace, but there are also many henchmen who work for the Fate Palace secretly. If you want to verify it, be careful. The sects that I can be sure of are only the Holy Fenglei sect and the Tianhe sect. I am sure that these two sects will never betray Qing. Cough, cough, cough. Lu Chun suddenly coughed desperately. Su Li's expression changed slightly, and she hurriedly stepped forward to pass a trace of the qi of Ghost Valley. Then the reincarnation mirror rotated slightly, shielding the nature's mystery for a moment. Lu Chun immediately found that the backlash of the nature's mystery that he had just forcibly revealed actually subsided quickly. He suddenly raised his head and looked at Su Li in a different way. This is not the Tianqing Valley. Elder Chun, there is no need to anger the nature's mystery. Just keep some things in your heart. The old man Bai Xiu said it very clearly. You know Senior Bai. Lu Chun was overjoyed. Is he still alive? Su Li was surprised. It seems that you haven't been out for a long time. I have a good relationship with him. He is even willing to tell you that thing. It's more than good. Lu Chun's thoughts were surging. At first, he was just glad that there was a successor to fight against the Fate Palace. But when it came to helping, although he was sincere, it was based on the premise that he didn't consume the foundation of the Holy Snow sect. But now, Lu Chun's turbid eyes seemed to be a little clearer. He looked at Su Li in silence for a moment, and suddenly transmitted his voice again. In fact, the Fate Ancestor is not as difficult to deal with as you think, as long as you can master the way to deal with the natural law. My Holy Snow sect has always relied on the ancient heavenly prohibition left by our ancestors. I wonder, are you willing to learn? Chapter 6:12. You can search, Poisonous Wife, in Baidu. You can search for the latest chapter. Ancient Heavenly Prohibition. Lu Chun looked at Su Li. His attitude was completely different from before, and his tone was gentle. The inhibition is derived from the tactical matrix, but it is superior to the original. It is a more complicated and powerful cultivation method, but it was lost later. Lu Chun explained to Su Li very patiently, but he didn't know that Su Li had already mastered an inhibition. Su Li's eyes changed. She learned the inhibition from Yi Che, which was also a kind of ancient inhibition. It was called ghost inhibition, also known as ancient ghost inhibition. Although she had not fully understood it, she found that the ancient ghost inhibition given by Yi Che was not complete. Compared with the holy sects, Holy Snow sect was not famous, but there was an ancient prohibition. What kind of inhibition was the heavenly prohibition? Compared with the ghost prohibition, which was stronger? Su Jouzhou, our Holy Snow sect still has a complete inheritance of the ancient heavenly prohibition, but no one has ever successfully completed the inheritance, so it has been kept until now. Now it is the Dharma ending age, and the success rate of inheritance of the ancient prohibition is getting smaller and smaller. However, your talent is definitely unprecedented. Are you willing to give it a try? Su Li nodded with a smile. It's my honor. Lu Chun suddenly smiled very happily, and even had a trace of cute treachery. Those who are not from our sect can't accept the inheritance. Su Jouzhou, you are also the grand elder of a sect, a junior emperor. If I let you be my disciple, it will be too difficult for you. Would you be willing to be the grand elder of our sect? You will be on an equal footing with me, and you will not be bound. Su Li smiled lightly, revealing her pear blossom dimples, and joked, Elder Chun's offer is too generous. If I still refuse, I don't know what's good for me. Ha ha ha. Elder Chun laughed heartily, and was even more eager than Su Li. I will ask Xiaoxian to prepare the identity token of the Grand Elder. You go to the forbidden area with me now, and I will tell you how to accept the inheritance. Standing outside the ice cave, Lu Xian couldn't help but be stunned when he heard the old ancestor's laughter. Grand Elder Su was really capable. What did the solemn old ancestor hear to make him so happy? The forbidden grounds of the Holy Snow sect were covered in a thick layer of ice and snow all year round. Eventually, no one could be seen. But today, two figures appeared on a tall snowy mountain. Lu Chun waved his sleeves and swept away the ice and snow. He formed a seal with both hands and imprinted it on the exposed stone door. Suddenly, a rumbling sound rang out and the heavy stone door opened from both sides. A strange and warm aura came from inside the cave. This can be considered the only warm place in the entire Holy Snow domain. It seemed that Lu Chun hadn't been here for a long time. A touch of reminiscence flashed in his eyes. He smiled and took Su Li into the cave. Su Li seemed relaxed on the surface, but in fact, her divine awareness swept the whole passage in advance. There aren't any restrictive formations or restrictive formations. Lu Chun didn't know that she was still vigilant. As he walked, he said, this place was originally full of ancient heavenly forbidden grounds. It could be considered as a test for the disciples of the sect. Later on, there was a gap in the cultivation culture. Almost no one learned the forbidden grounds, so there was no way to test them. My master removed all the barriers and only hoped for the appearance of a disciple who could understand the inheritance. However, even though it's not a test of restrictions, one's character still needs to be tested for a long time before they can come here. Su Li listened quietly and didn't speak. After a while, Su Li paused and looked at the top of the cave that suddenly turned into a sky. Her eyes changed slightly. With her eyesight, she couldn't see through the authenticity of this sky. It seemed that there was really a sky in this cave. With a move of her heart, she integrated the eye of evil ghost, and the sky suddenly became full of flaws in her eyes. At this moment, a hint of faint understanding rose from the bottom of her heart. Why did the natural law regard the body of evil ghost as a thorn in its side? Was her evil ghost powerful enough to make the natural law afraid? Or afraid? Su Jojo. Lu Chun couldn't help but call her when he saw her standing still. He said with a smile, "Do you think that this sky is fake enough to fool the real one? When I first came here when I was young, my expression was almost exactly the same as yours. However, this sky is just an illusion of an ancient heavenly forbidden ground." Su Li came to her senses and walked quickly to Lu Chun's side. She looked at the grassland under the sky and saw a round tripod. "What should I do?" "This is simple." Lu Chun pointed to the tripod. "Walk over and touch the round tripod with your palm. Then, it all depends on fate." "Really?" Su Li glanced at Lu Chun strangely. The latter immediately gave a wry smile. "My master told me so, and then I failed." Although what Lu Chun said was very unreliable, Su Li still walked to the round tripod, put her palm on it, and waited. An hour passed in the blink of an eye, and the round tripod remained unchanged. Lu Chun sighed. When he was about to say something, Su Li suddenly moved her palm away, and then grabbed the ear of the round tripod under his puzzled gaze. Buzz! The round tripod suddenly trembled slightly and emitted a white light. Lu Chun swallowed his words. Looking at Su Li who was concentrating on it, he muttered bitterly, "Does this ancient heavenly forbidden ground really recognize people?" Standing in the distance, he didn't see Su Li's dark eyes of evil ghost, which were calculating and deducing gradually. Like that sky, this round tripod itself is a complete ancient heavenly forbidden ground. Su Li's eyes flickered, and her mind turned. The inheritance of the ancient heavenly forbidden ground is really difficult. The eyes of evil ghost can see through the surface, and I happen to learn the ghost forbidden ground, which is also an ancient heavenly forbidden ground. Otherwise, even if I can see through the surface, I still can't unlock this tripod. As this thought flashed in her mind, Su Li refocused on breaking the ancient heavenly forbidden ground. She had only learned the ancient heavenly forbidden ground for a short time. Even if there was an evil ghost cheating at this moment, it still took a long time. Lu Chun watched Su Li patting the round tripod randomly from a distance. At this moment, the round tripod suddenly became a dazzling magic weapon, and the light became brighter every time Su Li patted it. He began to be confused. At the beginning, he could still think that the round tripod recognized its owner by itself, but now it was clear that Su Jojo was cracking the round tripod in a way that he couldn't understand. Did Su Jojo know the ancient heavenly forbidden ground? Lu Chun thought quickly, and soon connected the dots. Then he sighed. The new generation excels the old one. At the same time, Ling Li had just arrived at the holy snow region in the light of the winter noon. Su Jojo actually returned the Yin Jade mask to Buwang, so that I couldn't lock her position. Did she know that I was looking for her? Ling Li's face was gloomy and full of depression. After he arrived at the Jojo region, he sent a message to Ling Mo, but Ling Mo didn't respond. As a last resort, he could only sense the position of the Yin Jade mask and wanted to find Su Jojo directly. But in the end, he found Buwang's residence and alarmed the big tactical matrix of Ni sect. The grade of the big tactical matrix was almost the same as that of Xingtian Shrine. Where did Su Jojo get the mountain-protecting tactical matrix? And the most outrageous thing was that she blocked the communication between him and Ling Mo, judging from the fact that she went to Juecheng to abduct the entire Linli building. This step was absolutely intentional. After a period of turmoil, he successfully got rid of the pursuers of Ni sect. Perhaps Ling Mo was also alarmed. After leaving the sect, he sensed that Ling Li had contacted him, so he hurriedly caught up with him. After a conversation, Ling Li knew that Su Jojo was not in the sect at all. Maybe he could go to the Holy Snow region and the big region where the holy sect of Wind Thunder was located to try his luck. He traveled day and night all the way, and it only took him one day to reach the Holy Snow region. "Brother Ho, where did our boss go? I haven't seen her for a few days." Ling Li suddenly heard a conversation. He frowned and hid his figure. Suddenly, he saw a few practitioners with low cultivation coming. "Who knows? Our boss also liked to disappear before. Don't worry. She will come back in a few days. Maybe she really went to the Holy Snow sect with the elder sister. Our boss is resourceful. If she said there was a way to get in, there must be a way." Ling Li was about to leave, but after hearing the Holy Snow sect, he hesitated and chose to continue to stop. "I say, the elder sister is too good at pretending to be Grand Elder Su. Our boss is still a little worse. No matter in cultivation or appearance, she is far worse than our boss. Don't say that in front of our boss. I'm not stupid. Do you know that in the tavern we cheated a few days ago, the elder sister showed great power that night? She killed the killer of the Shura holy sect with one move. She was so powerful. Is she the real Grand Elder Su? How could it be? The elder sister is so approachable. How can she be like Grand Elder Su?" Xiao Ho and others immediately argued. Suddenly, they found that the light in front of them dimmed, and there was one more person. The double suppression from bloodline and cultivation made them all pale and tremble. Ling Li looked at the trembling crowd and waved his hand to show Su Li's figure. "Is she the elder sister you mentioned?" It turns out to be just a permutation game, but it is derived from the algorithm of inhibition. It is quite troublesome to solve it. Su Li's forehead oozed a little sweat, but her eyes were frighteningly bright. She patted the center of the front of the round tripod heavily. The last step. Crack. The entire round cauldron was like a fragile cage. It directly burst open, and a mass of light with complicated lines slowly rose up. Lu Chun only took a glance at it, but he felt dizzy and dizzy. He felt that his limited lifespan had been reduced by a few years. "I can't see it. There are too many thoughts in the inheritance." Lu Chun turned his back and wiped the cold sweat on his forehead. Su Li's eyes were clear. The group of light seemed to have a spirit. It stopped in front of Su Li and then slowly integrated into her eyebrows. Then a gentle female voice sounded in her mind. "The forbidden ground of heaven is the forbidden ground of heaven. It can be used as a prison to shield the mysteries of heaven and confuse the natural law. But everything has a limit. Going too far is as bad as not going far enough. It is fate. I hope you will remember it." Su Li closed her eyes and sat cross-legged to digest it. At the moment when she sat down, the runes of inhibition climbed all over the cave like a spider web. Lu Chun quickly stepped back. He knew that Su Li was protected by the inhibition and didn't need his protection. He was about to leave by himself. But at this moment, the head of Holy Snow sect hurriedly transmitted the sound, "Old ancestor, someone is coming. I am no match for him." Chapter 613. You can search, Poisonous Wife, in Baidu. Search for the latest chapter. Lu Chun looked gloomy and left the top of the snow mountain. "I'm on my way." In the front hall of the Holy Snow region, Gong Daden hid behind the dragon pillar and watched the two figures fighting in the field with a pale face. She was wrong. Not everyone was as good as Senior Su. If she had known that he would have a conflict with the Lord, she shouldn't have let him in. There was a loud bang. Gong Daden saw that the Lord of the Holy Snow sect could not stand steadily. She stepped back dozens of steps and leaned against the steps of the hall before stopping. On the other hand, the male practitioner did not step back at all. It was obvious who was superior. "Our old ancestor will arrive soon. Ling Li, why don't you leave?" the Lord of the Holy Snow sect said gloomily. Gong Daden looked at the male practitioner who was polite to her before. This person was actually evil Emperor Ling Li. Ling Li frowned slightly. Lord of the Holy Snow Sect, you know that I don't want to make trouble. Otherwise, how can you stand and talk to me now? I just want to know whether Su Jojo is here or not. The Lord of the Holy Snow Sect was so angry that she laughed. How can I know the whereabouts of Su Jojo? You broke into my sect this time. Even if you make a scene in front of the Lord of Xingtian Shrine, I have a reason. Ling Li increasingly felt that the identity of Xingtian Shrine was tricky. However, with his notorious reputation, even if he said that he left Xingtian Shrine, would anyone believe it? I will say it for the last time. I just want to know the whereabouts of Su Jojo. This matter has nothing to do with Xingtian Shrine. Where is she? I will say it for the last time. An old voice sounded outside the hall. Lu Chun strode in with cold eyes. Ling Li, you know that Xingtian Shrine and our Holy Snow Sect are like fire and water. For the sake of the Life Palace, I will give you 3 breaths to leave here. If you don't leave, don't blame us for being merciless. Ling Li turned around and stared at Lu Chun with golden light flashing in his eyes. What if I say no? Stubborn. Lu Chun's face was cold. He pointed upward with one hand, and in an instant, the world changed. The great hall disappeared, and in its place was a frozen land. A snowstorm swept over with dense killing intent. Ling Li waved his right hand, and a golden flying sword magically appeared in his palm. As he pointed at the void, the golden light flashed, and the blizzard was cut in the middle. It turned into fine wind and snow and drifted away. How could my domain law be broken so easily? This is not the fighting method of Xingtian Shrine. Lu Chun's heart trembled slightly. His figure merged into the void and he frowned. Why did he feel that this method was vaguely familiar? However, he couldn't remember where he had seen it before. This is the domain of a half-emperor. Ling Li stretched out his hand, and the golden flying sword fell into his palm. His eyes were cold, and he slowly walked on the ice. His thin lips gently opened and closed. Half-step sovereigns aren't as strong as I imagined. Lu Chun, you're already old, it's not suitable for you to fight. I come to your sect only for Su Jojo, and nothing else. Why are you so stubborn? Tell me the whereabouts of Su Jojo, and I will leave immediately. Ha 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 ha. Lu Chun's old laughter echoed in the ice field. Emperor of Evil, although the strength of our holy snow region is not as good as that of the ancient times, we have never bowed down to Xingtian Shrine. I didn't expect that your strength is able to rival a half-emperor and reach the level of a monster. But so what? Even at the cost of my life, I will not let the Life Palace harm Qingshui Circle again. Ling Li felt helpless and could only say, I have left Xingtian Shrine, and now I come to your sect for private affairs. Ha ha ha. Ling Li, do you look down on me and treat me as a child? Lu Chun didn't believe it at all. Ling Li's eyes were gloomy. He didn't have so much time to waste. Are you angry because I'm right? Lu Chun laughed heartily. He opened his mouth and spat out a cloud of snow, which blended into the domain. The gradually calmed down ice fields suddenly shook, and then, the overwhelming wind and snow came fiercely. Every bit of ice and snow was flashing with cold light, as sharp as a blade. Lu Chun, you've crossed the line. Ling Li calmed down and waved one hand. The golden flying sword suddenly flashed and divided into 5 pieces, which rotated at a high speed in front of him and blocked all the wind and snow. On one side was the calm ice field, and on the other side was the violent wind and snow. Ling Li, who was in the center, stood straight and effortlessly. Such a contrasting picture was strangely harmonious. Since I entered the sect, I have been explaining and defending. Since you insist, then I'll make a move. Speaking of this, the 5 small swords in front of Ling Li suddenly trembled, and then actually withstood the power of the wind and snow of the entire ice field, rotating, and pushing upward. All the wind and snow along the way were crushed. Lu Chun's pupils suddenly shrank to the size of a needle. This kind of power. Ling Li's strength was even above his expectation. Oh no. Emperor of Evil has such power. Did he have an adventure in the Xingxian mountain? Sister Qing is not in the sect, and I have angered him now. If he breaks my domain, the Holy Snow sect will be in trouble. Thinking of this, Lu Chun's eyes showed determination. His white hair fluttered without wind, condensed into an ice blade, and aimed at his chest. At this moment. Enough. There was a faint anger in the cold shout, and also a kind of power that Ling Li and Lu Chun could not understand. In an instant, the power of the golden swords and the ice field were disintegrated, and the domain was broken. The two slowly landed from the nothingness, and reappeared in the hall, in the eyes of Gong Daden, who was full of excitement. Elder Chun, you are frightened. Su Li appeared from outside the hall. Seeing Ling Li's eyes slightly brightened, she frowned slightly, and turned to look at Lu Chun, who was slightly out of breath. Elder Chun, are you okay? I'm fine. Seeing Su Li, Elder Chun's cold face immediately changed into a pool of spring water. He smiled and shook his head. I'm old and useless. Emperor of Evil has become much more powerful. You should be careful. Su Li nodded gently, turned around, and said expressionlessly, are you looking for me? Ling Li had already ignored other people, and immediately nodded, yes. Then come with me. Remember to apologize to Elder Chun. Su Li said and turned away. Lu Chun was a little stunned, because it was different from what he imagined. Okay. Ling Li immediately walked to Lu Chun. It's my fault to break into your sect this time, and I apologize to you here. Since I have found Su Jojo, I won't stay any longer. After that, Ling Li turned around and left, leaving the Lord of Holy Snow sect and Lu Chun in confusion. Shouldn't the meeting between Ni sect and Xingtian Shrine start to fight as soon as they meet? Why did Ling Li listen to Su Jojo's words? Walking to the threshold of the palace, Ling Li suddenly stopped and left a sentence. Although you don't believe it, I did leave Xingtian Shrine. From then on, when I meet with the people of the Life Palace, it's just a matter of life and death, no matter right or wrong. That's all. Goodbye. Gong Daden hid behind the pillar, watching Ling Li's side face disappear in his sight, and his eyes were full of stars. Emperor of Evil was quite handsome when he was serious. Soon after Su Li and Ling Li flew out of Holy Snow sect, Su Li stopped, turned around, and stared at Ling Li. Lord of Evil is really resourceful. Few people know my whereabouts, but you can find me here. Hearing her trademark sarcasm, Ling Li frowned. Su Jojo, you know best whether I am still the Emperor of Evil of Xingtian Shrine or not. Why do you mention the past again? Ha ha ha, Su Li sneered, mention the past again? If I don't mention it, haven't you done it? Do you really think that you can wash away all the sins by saying that you leave Xingtian Shrine? Would he be able to meet his wife openly and with a clear conscience? I don't mean that. Ling Li covered his heart. Every word of Su Jojo was like a knife inserted in his heart. But he still had something to ask, so he couldn't be angry. Then what do you mean? Su Jojo turned her back to him. Her eyes were slightly red, but her tone was as indifferent as ever. You don't need to explain to me. I'm not your wife. Don't follow me, and don't go to Ni sect to find me. I will take back Juecheng Linli building. You don't deserve to be the leader of Linli building. That's all I have to say. Take care of yourself. Seeing that Su Li was about to leave, Ling Li's face changed slightly. He stepped forward to grab Su Li's shoulder, but Su Li gave him a cold look and punched him in the face. Bang! A figure smashed straight into the snow like a cannonball. The red luster in Su Li's eyes disappeared, and they were covered with ice and snow. Don't touch me. You only make me feel sick. If you dare to touch me again, I will kill you. Swish! The voice in the night sky disappeared in an instant. A moment later, Ling Li climbed out of the snow, wiped the frozen blood on the corner of his mouth, and hissed softly. At this moment, there were thousands of doubts in his heart, but no one could tell him. Su Jojo's strength. How did she practice? Since the awakening of the bloodline, his strength had changed day by day. Compared with the strength when he integrated the Lihan sword, it was even better. But when Su Jojo attacked him just now, he couldn't even dodge. Moreover, she clearly saw everything about him from the end of the divine awareness. It could be said that even he himself might not know him as well as Su Jojo. But why did Su Jojo still hate him so much? Was it because he had killed too many practitioners? But in the cultivation circle, one could only kill or be killed. Since most practitioners stepped into this circle, they had no choice. Su Jojo should also understand it. A woman's mind is really as unpredictable as the sea. After thinking for a moment, Lingli cleaned up and looked up at the sky where Su Li left. Is this direction the holy sect of Wind Thunder? After Su Li left, she didn't go too far, but stopped in front of the Meizong sect not far from the Holy Snow region. She didn't see Lu Yan now child in the Holy Snow sect. After asking, she knew that he went to the Meizong sect to see Xian Meiji these days. Since Tian Meiji was taken away by her, the Meizong sect visited Ni sect several times, but they couldn't see her. Later, seeing that the Fate Palace couldn't do anything to Ni sect, the Meizong sect was disheartened. They seemed to give up Tian Meiji and began to cultivate Xian Meiji again. However, the Meizong sect stopped, but it didn't mean that the matter was over. At that time, Tian Meiji bewitched Xiao Qianlin to kill Qiao. She wouldn't let it go so easily. After thinking for a moment, Su Li launched all spirits tactics. Chapter 6:14. You can search for Poisonous Wife in Baidu. Search for the latest chapter. At this moment, there was a different scene in the Saintess Palace of the Charm sect. Snow Child Lu Yan looked solemn. He suddenly said to the gate of the palace, "Open." As soon as these words were spoken, the space around them began to tremble. Numerous runes began to appear, and then a buzzing sound could be heard. Lu Yan instantly suffered a backlash. His face turned pale as he staggered back a few steps and fell to the ground. It's useless. This is a formation set up by the ancestor himself. There's no way we can escape. Xian Meiji sighed, and her face was full of loss and sadness. She could not understand why the Charm sect had become like this. The originally amiable old ancestor had changed into an old monster blinded by greed. When did the Charm sect become like this? Did the elders of my Holy Snow sect discover it? There was deep worry in Lu Yan's eyes, but Xian Meiji shook her head. I was put under house arrest after I came back. Something must have gone wrong at that time, but I just thought it was a punishment for playing, so I didn't care. When I was released this time, the ancestor personally told me that he wanted to instigate the ancestor of the Sacred Snow sect to join his life palace. Only then did I feel that something was amiss. Xian Meiji's eyes were full of tears. Old ancestor clearly said that he would not be a lackey of the life palace even if he died. There must be something wrong. Xian Mei, don't worry. Lu Yan hugged Xian Meiji and comforted her in a warm voice. I believe that our old ancestor will not be so easily fooled. There is still a chance to turn things around. Sob, sob, sob. What if my ancestor uses you as a threat and forces your ancestor to do bad things? Xian Meiji burst into tears, and what she said made Lu Yan's heart sink again. That was exactly what he was worried about. Just then, a sound came from outside the house. Miss Bold, child Lu Yan is chatting with Xian Meiji in the Holy Girl Palace and will arrive soon. Thank you. When Lu Yan heard this, his expression immediately changed. Why did Balzisis also come? Not good. If Balzisis is tied up here, Grand Elder Qing will definitely go crazy and do something. He immediately stood up with a flushed face and shouted with all his might, "Don't come in. This is a trap. Don't come in. Don't come in. Don't," cough cough. Lu Yan suddenly coughed violently and covered his throat in pain. Xian Meiji rolled and crawled to hold Lu Yan, but Lu Yan spat out a mouthful of blood on the rune of the gate. Her eyes reddened even more. In the outside world, Bold Gong squinted his eyes and pretended to be puzzled. Elder, did you hear anything? Is there any sound? The female elder was surprised. She smiled and said, Miss Bold must have misheard. As she said this, she held the hand of Gong Darren very naturally and walked to the front of the Saintess Palace to push open the door. Whoosh, the door opened, and Bold Gong instantly felt the paralyzing poison spreading from the female elder's hand. Then, he was thrown into the hall. Bang! In less than half a breath's time, the door was slammed shut, and silence returned to the palace. Sister Balzi. Xian Meiji covered her throat and walked over, trying to help her to sit up. But she was surprised to see that Bold Gong stood up directly, patted the dust on his body, and sighed, Charm Sect really has a lot of dirty moves. Xian Meiji was stunned at once. She pointed at the blue palm of Bold Gong, and said in astonishment, Sister Balzi, shouldn't you be poisoned by the paralyzing poison and can't move for a short time? Bold Gong stretched out his palm, you mean this? Xian Meiji was horrified to see that the blue color on the palm of Bold Gong faded rapidly and disappeared completely in a few breaths. Lu Yan also recovered at this moment and followed them. His voice became hoarse and he said blankly, What's going on? Sister Balzi, when did you become so powerful? Bold Gong smiled and walked to Lu Yan. She stretched out her hand and a mass of green light soaked into her throat. The damage caused by the verbal backfire was immediately healed. The familiar scene immediately evoked the memories of those years. The encounter in Song Lei's cave was the most wonderful and unforgettable experience in their young lives. You are. A layer of white light suddenly emerged on the surface of Bold Gong's body. After the light dissipated, Su Li returned to her original appearance. Senior Su, it's really you. Lu Yan and Xian Meiji were both surprised. They stepped forward and grasped Su Li's sleeves tightly. Senior Su, Mei Sect is in trouble now. Xian Meiji told me that their old ancestor has secretly entered the Fate Palace. They want to kidnap me to harm Holy Snow Sect. Our Holy Snow Sect is as hostile to the Fate Palace as Ni Sect. Well, boy. Su Li patted Lu Yan's head, I just came from your Holy Snow Sect. Of course, I won't sit back and do nothing. You just follow me out. Nothing will happen. Lu Yan nodded heavily. But when he looked back and saw the sealed gate, he became worried again. Senior Su, the seal of this gate is the old ancestor of Mei Sect, boom. Lu Yan looked at the gate of the Holy Girl's palace which was blasted with a big hole. He opened his mouth in a daze and swallowed the rest of the sentence. Xian Meiji's eyes were full of stars and she tightly grasped Su Li's clothes. She hadn't seen Su Li for 10 years. Her cultivation had not improved much, but Senior Su had reached a realm that she couldn't understand at all. Xian Meiji, how dare you? The female elder came back with a slightly distorted face, how dare you destroy the Holy Girl's palace? Look, crack. Before she finished her words, she felt dizzy. Then she felt a pain on her right cheek. She was blown away like a cannonball and hit the pond in front of the Holy Girl's palace, setting off huge waves. Crash, as the water fell from the sky, it began to drizzle. This noise finally caused a disturbance in Mei Sect. In an instant, several Numas approached quickly. Who dares to come to my Mei Sect? You are tired of living. The female elder climbed up from the pond in embarrassment and evaporated the water on her body. Her eyes were full of anger. She finally realized that something was wrong. How could Xian Meiji break the seal of the old ancestor? Someone must be making trouble. It's me. What are you going to do? In the mist, the female elder opened her eyes wide and saw the appearance of the person. Her anger instantly turned into horror. It's you. Su. Noisy. Su Li looked indifferent and waved her hand casually in the air. The female elder seemed to be hit by a heavy object and fell into the pond again. This time, she didn't climb up for a long time. Whoosh. The first elder of Mei sect arrived first. When he saw Su Li, his pupils shrank and he quickly shouted, "Senior Su, please calm down. If my Mei sect does anything wrong, get lost." Su Li waved her sleeves, and the first elder fell into the main peak of Mei sect like a rag. He was stuck halfway up the mountain and couldn't fly out no matter how hard he tried. When the rest of the elders saw this scene, they didn't dare to fly forward. They all stayed far away and sent messages to the Lord and the Grand Elder. Su Jojo's temperament was not to be trifled with. In the face of enemies, my patience has never been very good. Grand Elder of Mei sect, you have been watching on the side for a long time. Why don't you come out? Su Li turned her head and looked at the nothingness. The Grand Elder of Mei sect, who was hiding in the nothingness, was shocked and turned to escape without saying anything. You still want to run? Su Li slightly raised the corners of her mouth. She stretched out her hand and grabbed in the air. The Grand Elder of Mei sect seemed to be held by an invisible hand. He screamed and was smashed from the nothingness. He knelt on his knees in front of Su Li. Such a humiliating scene immediately shocked and angered the elders. Even if Su Jojo was powerful, she didn't have to go too far, right? What was the difference between letting the Grand Elder kneel and Su Jojo defecating on their heads? Senior Su, Xian Meiji couldn't bear it. But when she thought of what the Grand Elder had done over the years, her eyes became cold again. Lu Yan looked indifferent and showed no sign of soft-heartedness. If Senior Su hadn't appeared in time, the consequences would have been unimaginable. Senior, please spare my life. The Grand Elder of Mei sect felt a sharp pain in his knees. Looking at the shadow in front of him, his voice was trembling. Su Li slowly squatted down, stared at the Grand Elder of Mei sect, and chuckled softly. You are not the Grand Elder of Mei sect, are you? The Grand Elder of Mei sect stiffened, and the anger in the hearts of many elders also temporarily eased. They cast their doubtful eyes on her. You have a smell that I hate very much. It's very familiar. Su Li took a deep breath and gently stroked the head of the Grand Elder of Mei sect. Then she seemed to touch something and gently hooked it. Puff! A bloody line appeared on the forehead of the Grand Elder of Mei sect, and then the head of the Grand Elder of Mei sect suddenly split into two. A bloody worm suddenly rushed out of it and rushed to Su Li's forehead at a speed that the elders couldn't see clearly. But halfway through, it found that it couldn't fly anymore. Su Li pinched the tail of the bloody worm and lifted it up. Her tone was cold and sarcastic. You want to control me with a small poisonous substitute insect? Fate Ancestor, you think too highly of yourself. Squeak, squeak, squeak. Under the furious gazes of the elders, the crimson worm seemed to be stimulated and started to tremble violently. Countless drops of blood dripped down and gathered into a small puddle on the ground. The crimson worm, on the other hand, quickly shriveled and stopped breathing. I'm surprised. Boom! The blood pool suddenly burned, and a calm and strange voice came from it. You even know about the poisonous substitute insect. Su Jojo, you are more difficult to deal with than I thought. It's time for me to divert some attention to deal with you. After these words, the blood seemed to have exhausted the last energy and was directly burned into nothingness. Su Li's eyes flashed. This was the first time she had heard the voice of Fate Ancestor. Although it was not a head-on confrontation, it made her have a more direct understanding of the danger of Fate Ancestor. She had only heard of the name of the poisonous substitute insect, but she didn't know how to make it. But Fate Ancestor not only knew how to make it, but also seemed to be proficient in it. Su Li got up, looked at the silent elders, and then looked at Xian Meiji, who was already holding the Grand Elder of Mei sect and crying. She sighed softly and murmured, it seems that today I have to start a massacre. The first elder limped to the Grand Elder of Mei sect and stared blankly at the cracked half-face of the Grand Elder of Mei sect. His eyes were dull for a long time before he raised his head and slowly knelt down to Su Li. Thank you, Senior Su. Chapter 6:15. You can search Poisonous Wife in Baidu. Search for the latest chapter. 2 days later, Suli arrived at the holy city of Wind and Thunder region. The Wind Thunder sacred sect was different from the sacred Snow sect. It had been developed from a small sect step by step. Who knew how many generations of disciples had passed through? The relatives of those disciples had lived in the Wind Thunder sacred sect to avoid disaster during the chaotic times. Gradually, it had developed from a small village to the Wind Thunder sacred city of today, which was governed by the disciples of the Wind Thunder sacred sect. Suli walked in the city without stopping and went straight to the stronghold of holy sect in the city. Over the past 2 days, she had found and killed all the elders of the charm sect who had been poisoned by the substitute goo. No one knew how dangerous the substitute goo was. Even she had only used the eye of the evil ghost to discover it and kill it. If the Holy Snow sect were to deal with it, she would not be at ease. She was the ancestor of Holy Snow sect who directly instilled all their understanding to her, which saved the process of understanding. While Suli digested it, the ghost restriction was also improved. But Suli was very clear that it was only a temporary measure to deal with the natural law with the restriction. After all, the restriction was a means of cultivation created by the human clan. It was too naive to fight with the natural law with it alone. Suli stopped in front of the tall building engraved with the logo of Wind and Thunder Holy Sect, and her eyes flickered. At this point, the outcome of the battle between the Life Palace and the Ni sect was not only related to her life and death, but also the future fate of thousands of creatures. She never thought of herself as a savior. From beginning to end, all she wanted to do was to make those bastards who had drunk her blood and eaten her flesh disappear. Even for this, she needed to be cautious enough. It was too weak to pin her hope on a single restriction. She needed more trump cards and more means. Thinking of this, Suli turned around and left the tall building. When she appeared again a moment later, she was Su Qingshui, who had gone to the lost city of Yinyang region. It was too sensitive for Su Jouzhou to go to Wind and Thunder Holy Sect. Holy Snow Sect was a surprise. She didn't expect to gain anything, but Wind and Thunder Holy Sect was different. She had come to the Wind Thunder Sacred Sect to drag the Wind Thunder Sacred Sect down, but more importantly, it was for the 2 Sacred Thunders. She already had the Water and Wood Godly Thunders, as well as the Earth Godly Thunders. According to the Ling clan's great elder, the godly thunders in the Wind Thunder Holy Sect were of the metal and fire types. If she could gather all the 5 elemental godly thunders, she might have a chance. Suli's eyes flashed. She leaned forward and was immediately stopped by a disciple at the door. The disciple politely refused. "Fellow practitioner, this is the stronghold of our holy sect of Wind Thunder building. If there is nothing important, please go back." Suli lifted her veil and smiled. She nodded and said, "My name is Su Qingshui. I have traveled thousands of miles to come here for the holy sect of Wind Thunder sect. It is of great importance. Please introduce me." Suli's face was decorated with all spirits tactics. Although it was a little worse, her temperament was still there. The guarding disciple couldn't help but be stunned. He immediately came to his senses and quickly clasped his hands and said, "Fellow practitioner Su, please. I will inform the elder." A moment later, in the VIP room of Wind Thunder building, an old man with white hair and a ruddy face came in. When he saw Suli, who was calm, he couldn't help but frown. This woman had a good temperament, but she was unfamiliar and too young. The Tianjiao contest had just ended. If she was really a talent, he should have some impression of her. Thinking of the words, "of great importance," he heard just now, he immediately stopped practicing and rushed over. However, he didn't expect to see a silly girl. The old man couldn't help but feel unhappy, but he didn't show it on the surface. He just clasped his hands and said indifferently, "I am an elder of the Ymen branch. My surname is Wenren. May I know what the matter is of great importance?" "Elder Wenren, it's my pleasure to meet you." Suli nodded slightly. Then, without beating around the bush, she directly threw the token given by the Ling clan's first elder to Elder Wenren and said, "This thing is related to the inheritance of your noble sect. Do you recognize it?" Elder Wenren took the token suspiciously, but he increasingly felt that Su Qingshui was a liar. There was indeed a mark very similar to that of the holy sect of Wind Thunder sect on this token, but it was different after all. What was the cyan arc mark on the back? He had never seen it. Deliberately mystifying? Elder Wenren frowned slightly and looked a little impatient, but his tone was still polite. "Little friend Su, the mark on this token is very similar to that of our holy sect of Wind Thunder sect, but it is not the mark of Wind Thunder sect. You are probably mistaken." "Really?" Su Li was stunned. Could it be that the Wind Thunder sect mentioned by the Ling clan's first elder was not the same as the holy sect of Wind Thunder sect? This was unexpected. But at this moment, the guarding disciple standing behind Elder Wenren looked at the thunder mark on the token and suddenly seemed to think of something. His face changed slightly, and he hesitated for a moment. Finally, he couldn't help but whisper, "Elder, look at this mark. Does it look like the one recorded in the ancient books of our sect?" Hearing this, Elder Wenren's face changed instantly. He grabbed the token and looked at it carefully. The more he looked, the more excited he was. The thunder and lightning were like a phoenix, and the purple evil spirit was added to it. This was actually an ancient token of the sect. If it was really an ancient token, it might be true that Su Qingshui said it was related to the inheritance of the sect. Thinking of this, Elder Wenren raised his head and waved a black tactical matrix to seal the whole house instantly. Then he retreated out of the house. "Elder, you..." The guarding disciple's face changed greatly. He pulled out his sword, and a thunder spell surged out. It hit the tactical matrix of the gatehouse, but nothing happened. Su Li looked up at the black runes all over the house. She looked calm and said, "Elder Wenren, what do you mean?" "Ha ha ha." Elder Wenren carefully reinforced the tactical matrix again. Holding the token in his hand, he smiled, "Treasures belong to those who are capable. You are just in Yuanying realm. What qualifications do you have to have the inheritance? It is undoubtedly a waste for the inheritance of the sect to fall on you. It's better for me to use it. It's good for both you and me." Hearing such shameless words from Elder Wenren, the guarding disciple suddenly widened his eyes and said angrily, "Elder, are you such a person? Ha! Wei Shan, you are still young. Don't say such naive words in the future." Elder Wenren shook his head, "It's already a great kindness that I don't kill you. Once I obtain the inheritance, I'll naturally let all of you leave. Before that, all of you stay here properly." As he spoke, he turned around and left with a face full of joy. However, he had only taken a few steps when his forehead hit an invisible barrier with a dong sound. Elder Wenren's face suddenly changed. He suddenly turned around and looked at Su Li, who was sitting at the table and fiddling with the tea without panic. "It's you. Elder Wenren, you are right about one thing." Su Li raised her head and slightly smiled, "Treasures belong to those who are capable. So you want to take my things? You are not qualified." As soon as he finished speaking, Elder Wenren felt that his hand was empty. "My letter." This time, before he finished speaking, the black runes in the room suddenly broke away from the tactical matrix and formed a net in the nothingness, sealing Elder Wenren's whole body. "You are a little long-winded." Su Li supported her chin with one hand and looked down at the elder who had been forced to curl up on the ground by the black runes. "I won't kill you for the sake that you don't want to kill me. The rest is left to the holy sect of Fenglei." Wei Shan shivered and subconsciously said, "I'm here." After saying this, Wei Shan realized that Su Qingshui was not a member of his sect at all. "Go back to the sect. I believe you should know what to do." Wei Shan nodded repeatedly. He immediately stepped over Elder Wenren who was lying on the ground and walked out. He walked to the place where Elder Wenren was hit and even slowed down a little. When he found that there was no obstacle, he quickened his pace. He inevitably had mixed feelings in his heart. Su Qingshui looked so young, but even Elder Wenren was no match for her. From the beginning to the end, he didn't even understand what spell Su Qingshui used. Such a talent is not on the Tianjiao list. Wei Shan thought about it and realized for the first time the meaning of the sentence under the Tianjiao list issued by Tainik Attic. All the talents who entered the secular world are here. There is always someone better than you. It is difficult to record the hidden talents. Could Su Qingshui be a hidden talent? Wei Shan didn't let Su Li wait for too long. In just a few minutes, he came with many elders. After the incident with Elder Wenren, he didn't know whether he should trust the elders or not. So, he brought all the elders who could be alarmed in the sect. When Su Li saw that there were 20 or 30 elders coming, she couldn't help but stand up and salute. I'm really flattered that all the elders came in person. Since there is such a scum in the sect, I naturally pay attention to her. The leading elder had a square face with white hair and beard. He had a pair of tiger-like eyes that were dignified without being angry. Wenren, do you know your crime for coveting the treasures of the disciples of the sect? Elder Wenren had been panicking for a long time, but his mouth was sealed by Su Li, so he could only make a sound. The tiger-eyed elder was surprised. Although Wenren's strength was not very good, his realm in the tactical matrix was indeed extraordinary. He didn't expect that he would be controlled by the tactical matrix today. Although Su Li didn't interrupt again, she was very considerate and gently waved her hand to undo the seal. The tiger-eyed elder glanced at her with appreciation, and then turned back and shouted, Wenren, what else do you have to say? First elder, I know I was wrong. After the seal was undone, Wenren immediately got up and knelt in front of the tiger-eyed elder. I was greedy and did such a shameful thing. But Su Qingshui is not a member of our sect. For the sake of my hard work for so many years, First Elder, please forgive me this time. I will never do it again. The tiger-eyed elder sneered and said, Forgive you? How can I forgive you? Su Qingshui is not only a disciple of our holy sect, but also a holy girl of our sect. You tried to rob the things of the holy girl, and now you want me to forgive you? Wait, First Elder. Su Li had to say something and asked doubtfully, when did I become a disciple of your sect? Why don't I know? Just because of that token. That's too childish. Chapter 6:16. You can search for Poisonous Wife in Baidu. Search for the latest chapter. This is not child's play. The tiger-eyed old man's expression was solemn. I will discuss this matter with you in detail later. As he spoke, the tiger-eyed old man waved his sleeves. Wenren Bai, you have violated the sect's rules today. Since this is your first offense and you have no intention to kill, you will be expelled from the sect today. Hearing this, Elder Wenren's heart shook. His expression was complicated, remorseful, and relieved. He opened his mouth, but in the end, he didn't argue. He bowed and kowtowed, Thank you, Great Elder, for showing mercy. Su Qingshui, are you satisfied with what I've done? Su Li neither nodded nor shook her head. She just said, This is the internal affairs of your sect. I don't want to meddle in other people's business. However, Elder Wenren, this little girl will give you a word of advice. Greed is not wrong, but if you don't know yourself and your enemy, it's best to put away your evil thoughts, lest you fail miserably. Wenren Bai sighed. Those who are unjust are doomed. This old man has learned his lesson. As he spoke, his hands trembled as he removed the token from his waist and turned to leave. Su Li raised her eyebrows. Although Wenren Bai's understanding was far from what she said, it was not a bad thing if there was one more person who scrupulously abided by his duty in the cultivation circle. After this matter, Su Li was taken back to the sect by the tiger-eyed elder. The tiger-eyed elder naturally had to introduce himself. I am the Wind Thunder Saint sect's great elder, surnamed Zhen. Inside the hall, after the attendants had served the wine and left, the tiger-eyed old man revealed a kind smile on his dignified face. Originally, I did not wish to meddle in the affairs of the sect, but the sect master's injuries have not healed for many years, and it is not suitable for him to be involved. If Grand Elder doesn't come out, I will be in charge of the sect's ordinary matters. At this point, Elder Zheng's eyes narrowed. May I have a look at your token? What's wrong with that? Elder Zheng, please. Su Li nodded and threw the token out. The token fell into Elder Zheng's palm. She was not worried that Elder Zheng would rob it, because his cultivation was not at the peak of nature's test. It was enough for the first elder of a holy sect, but it was whimsical to rob something in front of her. Seeing the mark on both sides of the token, Elder Zheng's anxious heart immediately calmed down. He smiled and said, "The token is not bad. It is indeed a keepsake made by our sect's lay ancestor. Su Qingshui, do you know what it means to have this keepsake?" Su Li's eyes flashed. She omitted what the first elder of the Ling family said and said vaguely, "I only know that it is related to the thunder of your sect." "You're right." Elder Zheng looked at Su Li with a smile. The thunder ancestor once passed down an ancestral teaching. Except for the lineal grand elder, only the Lord and I know this teaching. After the blank in the history of Qingshui Circle, if anyone can come to our sect with this token, our sect must unreservedly and unconditionally cultivate the person with the token. Even the ancestral thunder in the sect can be taught. Is that so? Su Li's complexion changed slightly, and she faintly felt worried about gains and losses. Although she had already known these from the first elder of the Ling family, in order to get the ancestral thunder, she had to put on a show. Elder Zheng smiled more. Obviously, he was very satisfied with Su Li's reaction. You don't have too much pressure. Although the ancestral teaching left by the Thunder ancestor must be followed, our holy sect of Wind Thunder sect is not pedantic. If the person with the token is not worth cultivating, we will choose to take back the token and give you another reward as compensation. Su Li's face darkened slightly. She pondered for a moment and said, "What's the test?" "Ha ha ha, it seems that you don't need to take the test of intelligence." Elder Zheng laughed and was more and more satisfied with Su Li. He got up and walked out of the hall. "Follow me." Su Li narrowed her eyes and followed him. "I will take you to the sect assessment hall. As long as your temperament and talent can reach the minimum standard, you can meet the Grand Elder with me and choose a day to hold the Holy Maiden ceremony." Su Li frowned and said, "Will it take a long time?" "I don't want to make a grand ceremony. I just want to improve my strength." Hearing this, Elder Zheng couldn't help laughing. He shook his head and said, "Ordinary disciples don't have such an honor even if they want it. But you don't want to hold the Holy Maiden ceremony. Forget it. You can discuss it with the Grand Elder after you pass the test. Not all holy sons and holy maidens will hold the ceremony. Now Qingshui Circle is in troubled times, and our holy sect of Wind Thunder sect doesn't want to be too high profile." "Okay." Su Li responded and didn't say anything. Although the threat of the Life Palace was like a fishbone stuck in her throat and she didn't want to waste any time, she still had the necessary patience to get the Holy Thunder. Seeing her reaction, Elder Zheng nodded slightly. The token has a spirit. Su Qingshui's strength is extraordinary. Although Wenrenbai's strength is not so good, he is still in Huashan realm. However, Wei Qing said that Wenrenbai was subdued by her with one move. She is neither arrogant nor impetuous and has a calm temperament. From what happened to Wenrenbai, it can be seen that this girl is not a heartless person. Thinking of this, he had decided that as long as Su Qingshui's talent was barely good, he would take her as his disciple. There was no impenetrable wall in the world. What's more, there were more than 20 elders present at the time of what happened to Wenrenbai. The news that Su Qingshui would participate in the entrance examination spread quickly. On the Holy Mount, Ban Qian was worrying about the choice that Su Jiuzhou gave him in the room. He didn't understand when Su Jiuzhou asked him to choose a side. Now he finally understood. Although he was the first Holy Son, he was not the first Holy Son with superb combat strength and unparalleled talent. On the contrary, he was the weakest first Holy Son in the history of Wind Thunder sect. He didn't know whether he could keep his position. How could he decide the side of Wind Thunder's sect? Although Wind Thunder's sect had always been at odds with the Life Palace and had many conflicts, no one had ever thought of a head-on war. If Ni sect and Life Palace started a war, it would inevitably mean a bloodbath. Would the Lord and the Grand Elders be willing to give up the peaceful days to fight against Ni sect? He didn't know. First Holy Son, I have important news. Bang! The door was suddenly knocked open. A fat girl with a ponytail and a maid's costume rushed in, holding a stick of candied hawthorn in her hand. Ban Qian rubbed his temples and said with a bitter smile, "Little girl, you have been spoiled by me. Even if you know I won't be angry, you should at least show me some respect as the First Holy Son. Now, I don't know whether you can keep your identity as the First Holy Son. You don't have time to care so much." The fat girl threw the slippery candied hawthorn directly on Ban Qian's table. She jumped on a low stool and shook her feet. She pointed at Ban Qian's nose and said, "Hey! You are in big trouble. Today, there will be one more holy girl in the sect. That holy girl is incredible. She has the token of the ancient sect in her hand and is aggressive. I heard that now the first elder is taking her to the examination hall in person. When she passes the examination, I think we have to move." A new holy girl? Ban Qian frowned. What's going on? It's so sudden. There was no news before. That I don't know. The fat girl climbed to the futon next to him and sat down. I am your little maid, but I can't get much news. You are getting moldy in the house. Don't you want to go out and have a look? Forget it. Ban Qian stood up and stretched out his hand. The clothes of the First Holy Son hanging on the hanger fell into his hand. Su Jojo hadn't come to him yet. He wanted to see what had happened in the sect recently. When the fat girl saw him put on the robe of the First Holy Son, she immediately cheered up. She stretched out her small fist and said, "That's right. First Holy Son, go." After that, she lay down again. "You go alone. I'm going to sleep for a while." Ban Qian looked at her lying on the futon. He shook his head helplessly and flashed away. "Greetings, First Holy Son." First Holy Son, as soon as he went down the mountain, the disciples who met Ban Qian saluted him. Ban Qian nodded in response. This was one of the reasons why he didn't want to go out. It was too troublesome. If the holy girl really wants to take on the responsibility of the sect, I will give my position to her. It's not bad to be an ordinary disciple. Ban Qian thought of this and couldn't help but recall the scene of fighting for the First Holy Son. At that time, he only ranked third among several candidates, and he didn't have the slightest desire to compete. The reason why he participated was that he didn't want to lose face for his master. But the first and second had too many thoughts. They schemed and plotted against each other. In the end, they took risks out of desperation. They disregarded the sect's admonition and secretly plotted to seize the divine thunder. After being discovered, the Grand Elder was furious and expelled them from the sect. Their master was also sent to a distant place and hadn't returned to the sect until now. Then, the identity of the First Holy Son inexplicably fell on him. The weakest in history, an inexplicable light flashed in Ban Qian's eyes. When he looked up, the examination hall was already in sight. At this moment, the examination hall was already overcrowded. Many little holy boys and holy girls came, and the entire examination hall was crowded with core disciples and elite disciples. "The First Holy Son is here," someone shouted. Su Li looked back and saw that Ban Qian had just stepped into the hall. His face looked much more haggard than that of the Tianjiao tournament. "Su Qingshui, you should know this thing. It's a bone annual ring." Elder Zheng nodded to Ban Qian and took Su Li to a black stone that looked like a tree root. "Everyone's age will appear on the bone age. This thing can roughly measure your age. One annual ring is 100 years. You are now in Yuanying realm. If your annual ring can be within 15 rings, you will be qualified." Su Li's eyes flashed when she heard this. If only one ring was shown, and she was less than 100 years old, it was easy to associate her with another identity, Su Jojo. This was inconsistent with her original intention. Why doesn't Su Qingshui move? Is it possible that she is very old? Doesn't she want to try? Everyone was talking about it. Ban Qian also looked at Su Li's back and felt a little familiar. But if he looked closely, he felt that no one looked like her. Recently, Su Jojo has really made me delirious. Everyone looks like her. Ban Qian closed his eyes helplessly. It would be peaceful if he didn't look at her. Qingshui, what are you hesitating for? Elder Zheng was also confused and couldn't help but ask. Elder Zheng, with all due respect. I have never seen this thing, so. Su Li showed a look of embarrassment. She stalled for time, but her mind was working quickly to find a solution. Elder Zheng suddenly understood and said, I see. You don't have to worry about any trap. Although this bone annual ring is an ancient treasure, it is just a bunch of ordinary inhibition popular in ancient times. If you are worried, I can even unlock its appearance and show it to you. Inhibition? Su Li blinked, and a dark color appeared in her eyes. She saw the simple inhibition law running under the black stone. It was indeed simple. She smiled, raised her head, and said apologetically, since Elder Zheng has put it this way, if I don't take the test, it would be unreasonable of me. As she said, Su Li stepped forward and put her palm on the cold stone. In an instant, countless runes of the ancient prohibition poured into the stone from her palm. Behind her, Elder Zheng nodded with relief. What a good girl. Chapter 617. You can search, Poisonous Wife, in Baidu. Search for the latest chapter. Buzz. 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 The black stone surface made a series of slight sounds, and then 7 rings of annual rings rippled like water. This was the limit that Su Li could do in a short time. But even so, it still made the audience silent. Elder Zheng was also shocked and couldn't help but confirm, Su Qingshui, you are less than 700 years old? Su Li moved her palm away and nodded helplessly. If she could do it again, she was sure to light up a few more rings. Although she was a little outstanding now, it was much better than 1 ring of annual rings. Great! Even with Elder Zheng's state of mind, he couldn't help but be happy at this moment. Reaching the peak of Yuanying realm at the age of 700 was already the level of the top talent. Even without the sect token, he was willing to accept her, let alone now. Su Qingshui, come with me to see Grand Elder Nan now. Elder Zheng said. Before Su Li nodded, he waved his sleeves and took Su Li away from the assessment hall. The originally quiet hall immediately burst into an uproar. The top talent. Such a talent actually came to our sect. It seems that the position of the first holy son is really in danger. It's hard to say. Who knows if Su Qingshui is a spy sent by other sects? The top talent. The holy sects are all treasures. How could they send him to be a spy? Standing in the crowd, Ban Qian felt the strange gazes from all directions. He couldn't help but feel bitter. Although he had no intention to be the first holy son, he had done his best for the sect during his tenure. Now a disciple who was more talented than him came. Was he going to be replaced immediately? Was he so unpopular? Ban Qian couldn't help but deeply doubt what he had done. If the sect really decided to replace him, he wouldn't feel anything rationally, but emotionally, he would inevitably be discouraged. I don't know if Su Jojo is still accepting people in NI sect. If I go there, maybe I won't have so many troubles. Anyway, the master doesn't care about things now, Ban Qian thought disgracefully. Finally, he shook his head slightly and turned to leave the hall. In the dim old attic, Su Li pushed open the door and looked back at Elder Zheng who was waiting at the door. Then she turned around and walked into the hall. There were no spirit stone lamps in the main hall. Only incense sticks were burning, occasionally emitting explosive sounds. Suli walked to the lamp and stopped. She saw the hunchbacked old woman sitting behind the sandalwood incense. The old woman lowered her head and didn't look at her. She held the token she brought. This person was the Grand Elder Nan that Elder Zheng had mentioned. It turned out that she was also a female cultivator. Su Qingshui pays respect to Grand Elder Nan. Su Li bowed her head slightly. The old woman raised her head and revealed a face full of wrinkles. Seeing Su Li's indifferent etiquette, she didn't care. She smiled kindly and said, "The cultivation circle has always been more men than women. As a female practitioner, it's not bad if I can cultivate the next female Grand Elder." Su Li was slightly surprised and asked, "Grand Elder Nan, shouldn't you test my loyalty as a disciple?" Hee. The old woman chuckled and threw the token into Su Li's hand with her fingertips. "Zheng doesn't understand, but I vaguely know the details of this thing. The possession of this thing can explain the problem very well. I only ask one question. Where did you get this thing? Vaguely know the origins?" A divine light flashed in Su Li's eyes. Although the old woman's cultivation was also in the junior emperor realm, it was still much worse than people like Bai Xiu. Even Bai Xiu couldn't resist the natural law's tampering of memory and had no choice but to hide in the reincarnation mirror. Was this old woman possible? Since it was impossible, she must be testing. From the moment she entered this building, did the test begin? All kinds of thoughts flashed through Su Li's mind quickly, but she looked as usual and replied at a normal speed. "This thing came from an ancient relic, but the information on it was completely erased, so I couldn't know the origin of the relic. But after going deep into it, I got it from a remnant soul and was pointed to the direction, so I came here to try my luck." Ancient relic. Immortal's Mountain was indeed an ancient relic in essence. The information in the mountain was indeed completely tampered with by Mo, so people couldn't know the truth. Remnant soul. First elder of the Ling family was indeed a remnant soul before he transformed into a ghost. In short, although what she said was beyond recognition, there was no lie in it. The old woman nodded slightly. How could she know the real origin of the ancient token? She just asked this question to test Su Qingshui's temperament. This pavilion was actually not an attic or her bedroom, but one of the 3 holy treasures of the holy sect of Wind Thunder, the Hall of Inquiring Conscience. If the person being asked didn't tell the truth, the Hall of Inquiring Conscience would sense it and she would notice it. The old woman had thought that no matter what Su Qingshui did, she would keep some secrets, but the Hall of Inquiring Conscience didn't respond just now. This meant that everything Su Qingshui said was the truth. Alas, the old woman sighed. She could have done a lot of tests, but it was not necessary. "Su Li, honesty is an excellent quality, but you live in the cultivation circle. But you are in the cultivation world, and there is no knowing what is in a person's heart. Even if you are from the same sect, you cannot confide in each other. So, lying can be considered a way to protect yourself. Understand?" Su Li blinked and was surprised that the old woman suddenly sighed with emotion. But she still nodded to show that she understood. She naturally understood. She couldn't understand it more. Maybe she was more emotional than the old woman. After all, her life was composed of big lies. If she didn't know how to lie, how could she live to this day? It doesn't matter if you don't understand. The old woman looked at Su Qingshui's pure black and flawless eyes, as if she saw her younger self. There was a trace of love in her eyes. When you experience more in the future, you will naturally understand. In the future, you are no longer a casual practitioner. With a backer behind you, it will be easier. I heard from Zheng that you don't like the ostentation of the holy girl, so don't do it. But since you are going to inherit the holy thunder, you must maintain the identity of the holy girl. Speaking of this, the old woman pondered for a while. You also have a senior fellow apprentice named Ban Qian. On the surface, he is a naughty and silly boy, but I also know that there is a hidden anger in his heart, a kind of anger that refuses to admit defeat. For many years, our holy sect of Wind Thunder sect has never set up a holy boy and a holy girl. Your arrival must have some influence on his state of mind. However, I believe that boy will not be so paranoid that he will bring about his own destruction. Compared with his two useless senior fellow apprentices, he is much more promising. After that, you can stay with him for a few days and wait for Zhen to prepare your mount of the holy girl. Then you can move. The old woman laughed. Although she blamed Ban Qian in her words, Su Li could see that she was very close to Ban Qian. Yes, Grand Elder. Su Li responded with a smile. Whether it was the holy sect of Wind Thunder sect or the holy Snow sect, the older generation were all selfless people with good minds. She also saw another kind of sect operation. This was completely different from the Su family and Yushu sect she saw in Jiuzhou region. Survival of the fittest was the iron law of any world. But if the people of a sect had no cohesion and cohesion, they would be like a plate of loose sand. When a strong enemy came, they would scatter without being blown by the wind. How could they talk about the future? Only such a sect was worthy of her choosing to unite with them without fear of being stabbed. An hour later, in the hall of the Mount of the Holy, Su Li had already taken off her black robe and put on the exclusive purple robe with thunder patterns for the holy girl of Wind Thunder sect. She looked at Ban Qian indifferently. Ban Qian put on the dignity of a senior fellow apprentice and was serious in speech and manner. But her mind was a little confused. One sect with two saints. The iron rule of single saint that the sect had adhered to for many years was broken like this. He still remembered that according to the records of the sect, there were once two talents in the sect who could be crowned as saints. But in the end, because of the rule of single saint in the sect, only one of them was crowned as saint. For this reason, the other talent left the sect. How could it be changed so easily this time? Was the Grand Elder so childish? The fat girl licked the sugar-coated haws, turned to look at Su Li to the right, and then turned to look at Ban Qian to the left. Her eyes were full of doubts. What were they doing? Was it so fun to stare at them? The world of adults is really difficult to understand. Xiaoya got up and patted her buttocks. She said to the two, "Do you want to eat some cakes? I'll prepare it. Don't whisper when I'm away." Then, Xiaoya left the hall cheerfully. Perhaps the beginning of Xiaoya eased the atmosphere a little. Ban Qian couldn't stand it anymore. He coughed softly and said, "Xiaoya is spoiled by me. She is so rude. Please forgive her." "Senior fellow apprentice, you are too nervous." Su Li narrowed her eyes and chuckled, "I'm not a devil. I just want to stay here for a few days. In the future, we will both be representatives of the younger generation of the sect. If there is anything I don't understand, please help me." "Sure, sure." Ban Qian agreed repeatedly and said, "I am a native of the Wind and Thunder region. I was picked up and raised by the master when I was a child. I grew up in the Wind and Thunder region. What about you, junior sister apprentice? I don't know where I am from." A touch of disappointment flashed through Su Li's eyes. She was indeed not her biological parents. Who were they? Maybe she saw a vague figure at the end of her divine awareness. But the sea of people was vast. How could she find them with that little memory? For so many years, she had not heard any information about her parents. Perhaps, her parents had died many years ago, perhaps, when she defeated the Fate ancestor one day, she would get the whereabouts of her parents from his memory. Or perhaps, even if she really found them, they would not remember that they had a daughter like her. After all, her destiny should not have been born. "Sorry, I am talkative." Ban Qian saw the undisguised sadness in Su Li's eyes and immediately apologized. "It is lucky and unfortunate to be alive in the cultivation circle. But no matter what, there is always hope to be alive, which is better than being dead." Su Li stopped thinking and couldn't help covering her mouth and chuckling when she heard Ban Qian's words. "Senior fellow apprentice, thank you for your advice. Chapter 6:18. You can search for Poisonous Wife in Baidu. Search for the latest chapter. 2 days later, the arrangement of the Holy Mount was completed under the supervision of Elder Zheng. In the past 2 days, Su Li had been staying on Ban Qian's Holy Mount. Occasionally, Ban Qian would show her around the sect and familiarize her with the rules. Although Su Li wanted to get in touch with the Holy Thunder, she didn't show any impatience. She didn't mention it until Elder Zheng came to ask her to move to the Holy Mount. Elder Zheng chuckled, "It's good to be obsessed with practicing. But you haven't practiced the holy method of our Wind Thunder sect. How can you get in touch with the Holy Thunder? The Holy Thunder has a spirit. If it senses that you are unfamiliar and you don't have the holy method of the sect, you will be regarded as an enemy by the Holy Thunder. That's not good." The holy method? Su Li frowned slightly. Elder Zheng nodded, "Yes, the holy method that only the Holy Sun and the Holy Girl can practice is called the Real Book of Ancestral Thunder. Even I am not qualified to practice it. I believe that Ban Qian has taken you to familiarize yourself with the sect these days. After you settle the affairs of the Holy Mount, you can go to the top floor of the book pavilion to read." "Is that so?" Su Li's eyes flashed, but she didn't say anything and nodded. Elder Zheng seemed to be very busy today. After giving some instructions, he left only a well-behaved young female supervisor. "Your Highness, my name is Xuezhen. I am responsible for the affairs of your mountain. If you need anything in the future, just tell me." Su Li nodded and said lightly, "Go to my Holy Mount. It's rude to stay in my senior fellow apprentices' hall." "Yes. Your Highness, please follow me." Xuezhen quickly bowed her head and led the way. But she was a little disappointed. The Holy Girl was so cold that her words were icy. Compared with the Holy Boy, she didn't seem to be easy to get along with. Thinking of the famous crazy girl on the Holy Mount, she sighed softly in her heart. Why didn't she have such good luck? Thinking of this, Xuezhen immediately comforted herself. "Xuezhen, you can't think like that. You are now the exclusive supervisor of the Holy Girl. You are much luckier than those girls who have to warm the bed for the owner of the clothing. In the future, you must scrupulously abide by your duties and be conscientious." Although Su Li was walking behind, the expression on Xuezhen's face was clearly seen by her. It was rare for Elder Zheng to find such a simple-minded female disciple to be her steward. He was really attentive. However, his identity was going to be exposed sooner or later, and he had wasted his good intentions. Su Li looked up at the mountain-protecting tactical matrix that flashed with thunder from time to time. If she was born in such a sect at the beginning, maybe, there would be no bloody accident of Holy Spirit. "Fate," Su Li raised her lips and said, "Hurry up." "Yes, Your Highness." After a while, Su Li came to her Mount of Holy Girl. Xuezhen wiped the sweat on her forehead as she introduced, this mountain was originally the residence of the core disciples, and it was empty. According to the first elder's instructions, after removing the palace, the height of the mountain was increased to the same height as the first Holy Sun. After that, we covered it with spiritual fields, spirit gathering arrays, and sleeping chambers. Obviously, Xuezhen had done her homework. She showed the details of the Mount of Holy Girl in front of Su Li. Su Li walked around the whole mountain unhurriedly, and then looked at the eaves in the hall silently. In addition to waiting patiently these days, she also noticed that the architectural style of the holy sect of Wind Thunder was similar to that of Zhang Lei's cave. Even if the immortal Zhang Lei she met in the Black Stone Forest was not a disciple of the sect, he must have something to do with the holy sect of Wind Thunder. Xuezhen also looked up at the eaves like Su Li, but she couldn't see anything. She couldn't help but sigh in her heart. What could she learn by looking at the eaves? Was the gap between ordinary people and geniuses really so big? Xuezhen, arrange the handymen who take care of the herbal field and clean the mountain. Su Li suddenly said and interrupted Xuezhen's thinking, I'm going out. Your Highness, rest assured. I will arrange it before dark. Xuezhen hurriedly saluted. When she looked up, she found that Su Li had already disappeared. She breathed a sigh of relief and immediately rushed down the mountain to the handyman disciple area to post the notice of recruiting handymen. As soon as the notice was posted, all the handyman disciples went crazy. Hurry up! Hurry up! If you can become a handyman of the Holy Girl Mount, you may be favored by the Holy Girl and become an official disciple in one step. Hurry up! If you don't go, there will be no place. Newcomer, do you want to go? The middle-aged man with pockmarks on his face was stunned and looked at Ling Li, who put down his work. He immediately walked over fiercely and was about to slap Ling Li in the face. How many days have you been here? Behave yourself. Ling Li grabbed the pockmark's backhand and threw him. The middle-aged man groaned and was directly thrown into the smelly puddle. Seeing this scene, the others were immediately shocked. The newcomer, Ling San, was so strong that the steward was not his opponent. Ling Li straightened up and looked indifferent. He turned around and squeezed through the crowd effortlessly. He tore off one of the few registration forms on the notice. After the battle in the Holy Snow sect, he couldn't make the same mistake again. So, he directly sneaked into the Holy Wind and Thunder sect as a handyman disciple and waited for Su Jojo to appear. For 5 days, he lurked among the handyman disciples, but he didn't hear any news about Su Jojo. He had decided to leave directly and go to the Tsiyin house to wait if there was no news. Unexpectedly, Su Jojo didn't come, but a holy girl named Su Qingshui. He was too familiar with the name Su Qingshui. Su Jojo sneaked into the Ju city with this name. The people of the Holy Wind and Thunder sect didn't know Su Qingshui's true identity, but he knew it. He didn't understand why Su Jojo sneaked into the Holy Wind and Thunder sect in disguise and how she won the attention and trust of the sect to become the Holy Girl. For him, those were not important. As long as he could see her and ask about the whereabouts of the reincarnation mirror, it was enough. It was not difficult to control Shuizhen's choice. After a while, Ling Li walked out of the handyman assessment hall with a jade rune and a set of new disciple clothes in his hand. He left in the envious eyes. He couldn't wear these dirty clothes to meet the Holy Girl. While all kinds of things happened in the Handyman mountain range, Su Li came to the top floor of the book pavilion unimpeded with the identity of the Holy Girl. The area on the top floor was very small, and the number of jade slips placed on the simple and unadorned bookshelf could be counted on one's fingers. Red, gold, blue, green, and yellow lights intertwined with each other, illuminating the surrounding restrictive spells and symbols clearly. It's another ancient restriction, and it's not one of the heaven restriction or the ghost restriction. Su Li showed a look of interest and walked to the rune of the restriction. There was a hint of deduction in her eyes, and she felt it quietly. Whether it was the ghost restriction or the heaven restriction, she hadn't practiced for a long time, so she needed examples to deepen her understanding. Although the restriction in front of her was not two of them, they had something in common, so it was beneficial to remember them. Perhaps because she had been in contact with the restriction for a long time, Su Li quickly remembered the characteristics of the next rune and turned her attention to the 5-color jade slips. She walked closer and picked up the green jade slip first. Genuine Book of Wood Thunder. Su Li quickly wrote down the contents of the green jade slip, and then directly sent the information to Su Bai. Can you practice this skill? In Sung Lei's cave, the teenager sitting cross-legged opened his eyes, and there was a little surprise in his starry eyes. Sister, this skill seems to be tailor-made for me. I'm born with a few of the skills. But there are more thunder skills that I've never thought of. Maybe I can try it. Su Li's eyes flashed, and she thought of a lot at this moment, but she didn't tell him in detail. Hong Bai, how are the people you caught? Hong Bai, who was curled up in the dark attic, immediately opened her eyes and shed 2 lines of tears of blood with joy. Sister, those people are very good. The grandpa of the Ling family and those uncles, aunts, and brothers and sisters all take good care of them. Their injuries have neither worsened nor improved, and their cultivation has not regressed. They won't even remember where they are. Good job. Su Li praised, and the little girl's pale cheeks blushed. She rolled on the soft mattress and was very happy. Su Bai peeped at this scene, and his cold face could not help but show a trace of gentleness. Su Li withdrew her thoughts and quickly memorized all the contents of the 4 jade slips of gold, water, fire, and earth. Although the amount of information was very large, it was much simpler than the restriction, and it was not too difficult for her. Her thoughts were clear. For the sake of the divine thunder of fire and divine thunder of metal, she must master these 2 holy methods no matter what. Only after mastering these 2 methods could she have a reason to ask Elder Zheng to try to touch the 2 divine thunders. She would leave the rest to Su Bai. After all, it was just 2 divine thunders that had lost their spiritual bodies. Although they had spirituality, even if they were tied together, it was impossible to resist Su Bai's control. After succeeding, she had 4 divine thunders in her body, but how to activate the earth thunder seed and how to integrate the divine thunder of 5 elements, she still had no idea. But no matter what, as long as there was a glimmer of hope, she would not give up. Thinking of this, Su Li glanced at the dark sky outside, turned and went downstairs to leave. Xuezhen was probably waiting anxiously. When she returned to the Mount Holy Girl, the main hall was brightly lit. Su Li walked slowly into the hall with indifferent eyes. As expected, she saw Xuezhen waiting for her at the entrance of the main hall. Seeing her coming back, Xuezhen suddenly took a deep breath, walked over quickly and saluted, "Your Highness, all the handymen have been selected and are waiting in the main hall." Su Li nodded slightly. "In the future, you can decide this kind of thing. You don't have to rush everyone to see me." "How can I do that?" Xuezhen said repeatedly, "Your Highness, this is your Mount Holy Girl, and the real decision maker is still you. I dare not make rash decisions. It doesn't matter. I don't covet pleasure." Su Li shook her head and walked into the hall. "Greetings, Your Highness." "Greetings, Your Highness." All the handyman disciples immediately knelt on the ground excitedly and spoke in unison. Only a tall and lonely figure stood in the kneeling crowd, looking at Su Li quietly with his cold eyes, without saying a word. Chapter 619. You can search, Poisonous Wife, in Baidu. Search for the latest chapter. Su Li's eyes were gloomy. She instantly saw through Ling Li's real body and frowned. Seeing her frown, Xuezhen was anxious and angry. She stepped forward and scolded, "How dare you? You don't kneel in front of the holy girl. Do you know etiquette?" Ling Li didn't seem to hear it. He still stared at Su Li silently. Xuezhen was so angry that her face turned red. She was about to take action, but was stopped by Su Li. "Take the others away." "Ah. Yes." Xuezhen was taken aback for a moment, but she immediately reacted. Although she was puzzled, she still immediately led everyone to withdraw. In the blink of an eye, only Ling Li and Su Li were left in the hall. Su Li sat down on the soft couch above the hall and looked at Ling Li condescendingly. She said slowly, "This time, you have learned to be smart." Ling Li touched his face, and he was not surprised that he was recognized. Su Jouzhou had always been mysterious. His secret camouflage skill, green puppet mask, inherited from the bloodline, could fool the elders of the holy sect of Wind Thunder, but not her. Thinking of this, Ling Li said in a deep voice, "Where is the reincarnation mirror? If you want the reincarnation mirror so much, why did you let it fall into my hands at the beginning?" Su Li's eyes flickered. She stared at Ling Li and chuckled. "The reason is related to my private affairs. It has nothing to do with you." Ling Li looked serious. "Su Jouzhou, I have never begged anyone in my life. If you are willing to lend me the reincarnation mirror, I can promise you any conditions." "Any conditions?" Su Li sneered. "If I ask you to die, are you willing?" "Yes." Ling Li nodded, as if death was not terrible for him, "But after the Fate Palace is destroyed, I will help you deal with the Fate Palace." Su Li's eyes flashed with a hint of light, and she slightly pursed her lips. After a moment of silence, she suddenly snorted, "Is this how you ask for help?" Ling Li was stunned. Then he saw the woman on the soft couch suddenly raised her lips and said, "You will be my attendant from now on. No matter where I go, you have to follow me and serve me. Do you understand?" Su Jojo. Ling Li looked angry. Is it interesting to humiliate me like this? Humiliate? Su Li got up and walked to Ling Li. She looked at his disguised face and said softly, "This is not a humiliation, but an attitude. Don't you want to borrow the reincarnation mirror?" Saying this, she flipped her palm, causing an ancient, round, and incomplete copper mirror to appear in her palm. A strange aura was emitted from it. Reincarnation mirror. Ling Li's expression changed. He reached out to grab it, but the mirror suddenly disappeared. The reincarnation mirror is really in your hands. Ling Li's eyes were shining. If he had done all those things just for the slightest possibility, now that he really saw the real body of reincarnation mirror, the hope in his heart was suddenly magnified countless times. What? Do you want to snatch it? Even though your bloodline has awakened, I advise you to give up on the idea of snatching something from my hands. If you want to borrow it, I can promise you that. Su Li smiled brightly and said, "As long as you make me happy and let me see your attitude of asking for help, I will lend it to you. How about that?" Ling Li stared at Su Li coldly. "What do you want to do?" "What I want to do is none of your business." Su Li stopped smiling and turned back to the soft couch. "The decision is up to you, Ling Li. If you don't want to, you can leave the sect now. I won't punish you, but don't come to me again. If you are willing to accept my conditions, then stand by my side." At this time, many handyman disciples waited quietly outside the hall, but secretly transmitted the sound in silence. "I know Ling San. He is a newcomer. I heard that he even beat the handyman supervisor in order to be selected for the Holy Mount. He really doesn't know the rules. He doesn't kneel in front of the Holy Girl. He is doomed this time." When many handyman disciples were secretly happy for one less competitor, Shui Zhen, who was standing outside the hall, finally received the sound in silence from Su Li. "You can continue. Bring them in." Shui Zhen was shocked. She suppressed her uneasiness and said to many handyman disciples who were waiting patiently behind her, "Come in with me." Everyone immediately stopped transmitting the sound in silence, bowed their heads and entered the hall one after another. "Greetings, Your Highness. Rise, all of you." Shui Zhen was the first to raise her head. When she saw Ling Li standing beside Su Li, she couldn't help but be stunned. What was going on? Many handyman disciples looked up one after another. When they saw Ling Li, who was unscathed beside Su Li, they were all stunned. "Your Highness, this," Shui Zhen hesitated, but Su Li nodded with a smile. "From now on, Ling San will follow me as my personal attendant. Shui Zhen, you can arrange other people's duties as you see fit. You can leave now." When Shui Zhen heard this, she was so shocked that her eyes almost popped out. This was a personal attendant, to put it nicely, but wasn't it a boy toy? It turned out that the holy girl liked this kind of person. However, Ling San's looks were ordinary, the kind that would be hard to find in a crowd. Why did the holy maiden take a fancy to him? "Your Highness." At this moment, a handsome young man among the handyman disciples summoned up his courage and stood up, trying to imitate Ling Li's deep expression just now. But as soon as he stood up, Shui Zhen saw Su Li's cold face. She waved her sleeves and drove the young man out of the hall. Not everyone can be quick-witted. Su Li took back her sleeves and said slowly. Then she waved her hand to Shui Zhen. Shui Zhen immediately understood and hurriedly took away all the handymen, so as not to upset the holy girl. After this incident, she added a label of temperamental to her master in her heart. Ling San. What a lucky boy. I heard that he just entered the sect. It seems that I have to serve the holy girl more carefully in the future. Otherwise, if Ling San takes away my position as the supervisor one day, where can I go to cry? Shui Zhen's heart felt a sense of crisis, and her footsteps quickened. She must show her ability to His Highness. After Shuizhen left with the handyman, there were only Su Li and Ling Li in the hall again. Well, Ling San, it's late. The side hall is your place to rest. Go. Su Li waved her hand, and Ling Li walked down the high platform expressionlessly. Before leaving, he looked back at Su Li deeply. If you lie to me, I won't let you go. Then, he turned around and left neatly. Looking at his straight back, Su Li's eyes seemed to be covered with a layer of gauze, and her thoughts couldn't be seen clearly. After a long time, it was late at night. Su Li's eyes flashed, and she got up and floated into the adytum for practicing in the bedchamber. Practicing the Golden Fire Thunder skill was the top priority, and other things were not important. Su Bai. I'm here. Although the Golden Fire Thunder skill is different, it's not difficult for you to learn the basic level with my help. In the quiet night, few people slept soundly. Little girl, did you find any news about Su Jojo in Tainik attic? Ban Qian stared at the fat girl with a pair of dark circles under his eyes. The fat girl snorted and said word by word, Tainik attic doesn't sell any news related to Ni sect. It is said that Ni sect has a special method, and all the spies can't return, so Tainik attic has no way to infiltrate. Su Jojo is the Grand Elder of Ni sect. Who knows her whereabouts? The fat girl rolled her eyes, and then lay on Ban Qian's knee again. She asked with a gossipy face, why do you care so much about the whereabouts of Grand Elder Su? Did you really have an affair with young Master Su in Xingxian Mountain? Ban Qian's face changed slightly, and he raised his hand to give her a knock. Bang! Ouch! The fat girl held her head with tears in her eyes. How can you hit me? Little girl, you can't say this in the future. Ban Qian looked solemn. Who am I and who is Su Jojo? If the words are spread, Su Jojo will settle accounts with me. She even dares to catch the holy boy and the holy girl of the holy sect, let alone me. If you speak without thinking, I can't protect you. The fat girl's face turned pale, and she finally knew the seriousness of the matter. She covered her mouth and nodded repeatedly. Ban Qian rubbed his eyebrows and sighed secretly. The more Su Jojo disappeared, the more flustered he was. He hadn't told the Grand Elder about which side to choose, so he hadn't found a good opportunity. In addition, there was a holy girl now. What a headache. Ban Qian patted his head and was distressed. Hey, first holy son, you don't have to worry about anything now. You don't have the final say in the sect. Just tell Su Jojo's words to the Grand Elder. The fat girl said indifferently, you didn't want to be the holy son. Now there is a holy girl in the sect. If the choice of the sect is different from what you want, then let's go. Go? To where? Ban Qian was a little confused by the little girl's argument and asked. Where else can we go? The little girl blinked. First holy son, have you become stupid after practicing too much? Ban Qian didn't know whether to laugh or cry. This matter is also sensitive. Don't mention it again. Oh, the little girl responded obediently, got up, patted her knees, and sighed. The world of adults is really difficult to understand. I don't care. I'm going to sleep. As he spoke, he ran off with a thud. Ban Qian couldn't help but chuckle as he watched her delicate back view leave. Perhaps, what the little girl said was right. If I go against the Fate Palace, it won't be considered as defecting, right? For several days, Su Li didn't go out and had been practicing in isolation. Ling Li's purpose was very simple. He only wanted the reincarnation mirror. He was not interested in anything about the holy sect of Wind Thunder Thunder, so he also practiced in the side hall to speed up the process of bloodline integration. If the bloodline integration was fast enough, he might have a chance to directly grab the reincarnation mirror from Su Jojo. He wouldn't always be at the mercy of Su Jojo. At the moment, he just had to compromise. He always had the idea of robbing. Shuizhen kept the mount of the holy girl in order. Every time she looked at the quiet hall of the holy girl, she was gratified, but she couldn't help but sigh. Her Highness was really not a person who coveted pleasure. She practiced in isolation before the mountain was settled. The male pet was also calm. He had been practicing in isolation in the side hall and didn't go anywhere. Was this the reason why Her Highness took a fancy to him? However, if Her Highness continued to practice in isolation, wouldn't the effect of her management of the mountain be in the eyes of the holy girl? Was her hard work wasted just like that? But at this moment, an untimely voice suddenly sounded. The mount of the holy girl has become so lively not long after its completion. Junior sister apprentice Shui Zhen, you are really something. Chapter 620. You can search for Poisonous Wife in Baidu. Search for the latest chapter. Hearing this familiar voice, Shui Zhen's heart skipped a beat. Turning around, the first thing that entered her eyes was a golden lightning mark between his eyebrows, causing the originally feminine young man's face to become even more bewitching. Senior brother Chen. You're back. Shui Zhen pretended to be calm, but her body could not help but retreat. This is Holy Maiden Peak. Senior apprentice brother, if you do not have permission, you cannot come up here. The lightning mark between the youth's eyebrows flashed. He smiled until his eyes narrowed. Holy Maiden Peak. Junior sister, I remember telling you to obediently wait for me to become the holy sun and manage the affairs of the sacred peak. How could you forget that? Chen Qing, the great elder, asked me to come. Don't come over. Shui Zhen retreated in panic until her back hit the wall. She had no choice but to stop and sternly berated, you're not qualified to be a holy child. I'm not anyone to you. Why should I wait for you? He. When Chen Qing heard this, he immediately laughed. Shui Zhen, you have never spoken to me like this in the past. As he spoke, Chen Qing grabbed Shui Zhen's neck and moved his face closer to hers. His eyes that were as cold as a venomous snake flashed with a dangerous luster. After becoming Su Qingshui's subordinate, your wings have hardened a lot. Shui Zhen was pinched until her face turned red, but she was unable to pry Chen Qing's hand away. Not far away, a new odd job worker who was cleaning the herb fields could not stand it anymore. Just as he was about to throw down his hoe, he was pulled back by another odd job worker beside him. Newcomer, are you tired of living? How dare you meddle in senior brother Chen Qing's affairs? He is the Grand Elder's personal disciple. Even if you were beaten to death by him, you would still be fine. The new odd job worker shuddered when he heard this, and he immediately withdrew his footsteps, but his expression was somewhat unwilling. Manager Shui Zhen is a rare good manager. We can't just do nothing. Where is Her Highness the Saintess? Her Highness the Saintess is in seclusion. If someone could inform the Saintess, Manager Shui Zhen might be saved. When the new odd job worker heard this, his eyes suddenly lit up. He threw down his hoe and ran into the side hall. Ling San. Ling 3. Something bad has happened. Ling Li opened his eyes and frowned. He naturally saw what happened outside the hall, but Su Jiuzhou was practicing in isolation. If he disturbed her rashly. But if he took action himself, his identity would be exposed. At that time, it would be impossible to follow Su Jiuzhou to fulfill the conditions. Ling San, you can't just leave her in the lurch. You were able to become the Holy Maiden's attendant because of the opportunity given by Manager Shui Zhen. If it weren't for her, you would still be crawling and rolling around in the servants' room. People should know how to be grateful. The new handyman tried to persuade him. In Ling Li's divine awareness, he saw that Chen Qing grabbed Shui Zhen's hair and dragged her down the mountain. Finally, he sighed. Forget it. Following this sigh, the smile on Chen Qing's face, which was outside the hall, suddenly froze, along with his movements. Shui Zhen struggled free from his hand, feeling puzzled. She crawled up and retreated a few steps. Then, she retreated at lightning speed until she reached the entrance of the main hall. Creak, the door of the hall suddenly opened by itself. The robe with thunder patterns reflected in Shui Zhen's eyes made Su Li look slender. In the rising purple, she looked inexplicably noble. Behind her, Ling Li followed silently. Looking at her back, his eyes flashed slightly. Your Highness. Xuezhen bowed her head, looking frightened and apologetic. I'm sorry to disturb your practice. It's Xuezhen, you are indeed disturbing me. Xuezhen suddenly trembled. She bit her lips to prevent her grievance from showing. Su Li smiled and gently patted her on the shoulder. If Ling San hadn't sent a message, would you have followed this trash? But why didn't you use the carrier rune I gave you? Ah. Xuezhen Xiu's face was filled with astonishment. You were cultivating, next time you encounter this kind of thing. Su Li walked to Chen Qing, who couldn't move. She suddenly changed her tone and smiled. There won't be a next time. Chen Qing was frightened. He didn't care about his identity and transmitted the sound in silence. Su Qing Shui, what are you doing? I am the direct disciple of Grand Elder Hua. I have mastered. Su Li turned around and gently swept her sleeves. Chen Qing's whole body trembled instantly. There was a cracking sound. His pubic region was directly broken. He fell down the cliff with a scream like a kite with a broken string. Xuezhen stared at this scene blankly. Tears had already dripped down her cheeks unknowingly. But this time, it was not tears of grievance, but tears of gratitude, joy, and relief. Prince Qingshui, in the hall, Su Li leaned on the soft couch. She supported her cheek with one hand and closed her eyes to rest. Ling Li sat quietly on the chair beside the soft couch. Xuezhen came with snacks and spiritual fruits and put them on the tea table beside Su Li. She couldn't help but peek at Su Li's side face. Her face instantly turned red. Prince Qingshui was so beautiful. It would be great if she could serve Prince Qingshui forever. Xuezhen, you are so cheap. Xuezhen was lost in her thoughts. When she saw Su Li waving her hand, she seemed to wake up from a dream. She hurriedly retreated and almost fell at the door. When Xuezhen's figure disappeared at the door, Ling Li frowned. He couldn't help but ask, you have been practicing in isolation for a long time? What? Su Li picked up a pastry and tasted it. She smiled, are you complaining that I didn't take action earlier? Ling Li snorted coldly and didn't answer. Su Li chuckled, I just want to see if the Lord of Evil is really as cold-blooded as the rumor says. That's really disappointing, Grand Elder Su. Ling Li couldn't stop the coldness in his words. However, what does my character have to do with Grand Elder Su? Of course it has something to do with you. Something to do with you? What's the matter? The Lord of Evil is not qualified to know. Ling Li's face darkened. He held back his anger and kept silent. Well, for the reincarnation mirror, he had to bear it. It was so quiet in the hall. After 2 hours, the pastries on the tea table were all gone. But Su Li still sat on the soft couch and didn't move at all. What are you doing? Ling Li finally couldn't help but ask. Su Li glanced at him and gently spat out a word, waiting. Waiting for Grand Elder Hua. Ling Li was puzzled. You know that Grand Elder Hua will punish you if you disable Chen Qing. Why do you do this? Aren't you afraid that he will affect your plan to sneak into the Wind Thunder sect? I just need a chance. Su Li's eyes were gentle, but her smile was like a demon. She stared at Ling Li. Chen Qing is a good opportunity. Why don't I take advantage of it? Although Ling Li didn't understand the deep meaning of her words, it didn't prevent him from sneering coldly. It turns out that Xuezhen is also a chess piece in your eyes. Yes, a chess piece. Su Li still smiled, but her eyes were cold. But she is really out of the sea of bitterness, isn't she? Compared with you, a chess piece, she is much happier. Su Jojo, shut up. Ling Li stared at Su Li with his eyes red. Su Li's words were like a knife, directly penetrating his heart. Since he was born, he had been a chess piece in the hands of the Lord of Xingtian Shrine. For 2,000 years, how many mistakes he made and how much he missed. Only he understood the pain. What did Su Jojo know? A sense of regret flashed in Su Li's eyes, but she snorted coldly on the surface. Then she turned her head and stopped talking. Did I come at the wrong time? Perceiving that the atmosphere in the hall had changed, Shuezhen said cautiously, Your Highness, the first elder invites you. Oh. She finally comes. Su Li turned her eyes, got up and walked down the soft couch. Ling Li looked at her back, took a deep breath, and finally got up to follow her. Your Highness, I'm sorry. It's all because of me that you get into trouble. Shuezhen lowered her head guiltily. Su Li patted her on the shoulder and said, Take care of the mountain. I will be back soon. Without waiting for Shuezhen to react, he flew off into the distance. Shuezhen nodded blankly. Looking at Ling Li who flew away behind Su Li, she murmured, Isn't Ling Sen a handyman disciple? Why did he go to see the first elder? In the elder's yard, Elder Zheng was anxiously waiting outside the door of the physician elder. First elder, are you looking for me? Su Li walked over calmly, and Ling Li followed her obediently. You finally come. Elder Zheng glanced at Ling Li strangely, but he was not in the mood to care about him. He took Su Li to the study and asked with surprise and distress, Chen Qing, all his bones were broken and his cultivation was destroyed. You stirred up a hornet's nest. He trespassed on my mountain. According to the rules of the sect, even if I killed him, I would not be guilty. Su Li's self-righteous look made Mr. Zheng both angry and amused. After all, he was a young man who did things regardless of the consequences. Even so, do you know who is behind Chen Qing? It's Grand Elder Hua. There are only 2 Grand Elders in our holy sect of Wind Thunder sect. One is Grand Elder Nan, and the other is Grand Elder Hua. This time, you destroyed the direct disciple of Grand Elder Hua. How can he not be angry? The reason why he hasn't come to you until now is that Chen Qing was stopped by Grand Elder Nan because he was unreasonable. Su Li suddenly understood. No wonder no one came for such a long time. It turned out that Grand Elder Nan stopped him. Seeing Su Li's sudden realization, Elder Zheng didn't know whether to laugh or cry. This girl deliberately pretended to be stupid. However, you don't have to worry too much. Grand Elder Nan and Grand Elder Hua have always had different ideas. They don't get along well. If it weren't for the ancestral teachings, they couldn't coexist peacefully. Chen Qing has always been lawless, and even I can't discipline him. Grand Elder Nan couldn't bear it for a long time. Now that you destroyed him, Grand Elder Nan will be very happy to help you settle this matter. Speaking of this, Elder Zheng frowned, the only trouble is the Divine Thunder. Su Li came for the Divine Thunder. She couldn't help but raise her eyebrows and asked, Trouble? Is the Divine Thunder in the hands of Grand Elder Hua? Not exactly. Elder Zheng smiled bitterly, there are 2 Divine Thunders in our holy sect of Wind Thunder sect. The Divine Thunder of Fire is in the hands of Grand Elder Nan, and the Divine Thunder of Metal is in the hands of Grand Elder Hua. This is not good. Su Li frowned and was about to speak. Suddenly, a gust of wind blew in the study. After the wind dissipated, the figure of Grand Elder Nan appeared. She grabbed Su Li's hand. Come with me to see the Divine Thunder. As he said, he took Su Li into the nothingness and disappeared, leaving Elder Zheng who was stunned. Elder Zheng came to his senses and saw Ling Li. He couldn't help but gossip, who are you to Su Qingshui? Ling Li. Chapter 621. You can search, Poisonous Wife, in Baidu. Search for the latest chapter. Well, you don't have to say it. I understand. Elder Zheng smiled meaningfully. What did you understand? Ling Li was almost hurt by Elder Zheng's chrysanthemum-like smile. He didn't expect that the first elder of the holy sect of Wind Thunder had the potential to gossip. He sighed secretly and didn't explain. He just said, First elder, then. I'll go back to the mountain first. Go ahead. Elder Zheng waved his hand and didn't forget to remind him, your cultivation is low. Remember to take care of yourself. Ling Li staggered and almost fell on the threshold. He ran away without looking back. Ha ha ha, Elder Zheng laughed and looked at Ling Li's back. He couldn't help but sigh, it's so good to be young. Grand Elder Nan took Su Li and flew in the forbidden land of Phoenix Thunder for a short time. Then they landed on the edge of a dead fire crater. Grand Elder Nan made a gesture with both hands and opened the seal of the crater. Suddenly, a fiery red thunder snake rushed out, and there was a faint sound of thunder in Su Li's ears. Su Li's eyes flashed. She didn't say anything and followed Grand Elder Nan into the volcano. Su Qingshui, the divine thunder is in the center of the volcano. Do you know why I took you to see the divine thunder in a hurry? Grand Elder Nan was walking in front of you along the tunnel that had been dug. Before Su Li answered, her low and hoarse voice echoed in the tunnel, my name is Xiang Nan, and the Grand Elder Hua you know is my brother who has no blood relationship with me, Xiang Hua. Thunder Ancestor was alone all his life. Both of us were orphans picked up by Thunder Ancestor from the outside world. After my adoptive father died, the sect was no longer powerful. In order to ensure the inheritance, the divine thunder of fire and the divine thunder of gold were separated according to my adoptive father's last words. My brother and I kept them separately. It has been 10,000 years. Grand Elder Nan sighed with emotion in her old and turbid eyes, time flies so fast. In a blink of an eye, I have become an old woman with a wrinkled face. Speaking of this, Grand Elder Nan laughed, Qingshui, it's boring to listen to me, isn't it? No. Su Li looked well behaved, Grand Elder, since you have guarded the divine thunder of fire for 10,000 years, why haven't you found a person to inherit it? If there is a disciple who can control the divine thunder of fire, maybe the glory sect can be restored to its former glory. You little girl, it's easy for you to say. But how can it be so easy to find a suitable person? Grand Elder Nan shook his head and laughed. There was a hint of disappointment in his eyes. In the past 10,000 years, the holy sons and holy virgins change every 2,000 years. It's not that no one has ever cultivated the Fire Thunder True Book. However, the fire element divine thunder is the most violent divine thunder among the 5 elements divine thunder. The metal element divine thunder is not far behind. After the divine lightning entered their bodies, all the holy sons and holy daughters failed without exception. Su Li's eyes flashed. She still had the divine thunder of water in her body. Water and fire were incompatible. If she chose to integrate the divine thunder of fire first, it would be much more difficult. Initially, she wanted to fuse the divine thunder of metal first. Among the 5 elements, metal gives birth to water, and the conflict between metal and water is much smaller. Alas, plans can't keep up with the changes. Your arrival is undoubtedly a pleasant surprise. Grand Elder Nan smiled gently. When I can remember, my foster father was not in good health. He often hid from us and vomited blood for a period of time. Before he died, he talked about this inheritance jade talisman the most. I don't know the meaning of the mark on the back of the jade token, but my foster father said that if someone can come to the sect with this jade token, if he is a promising talent, the sect must cultivate him even with all its resources. An inexplicable expression appeared on Su Li's face, and then she sighed softly, Qingshui. I don't deserve it. That thunder ancestor should be the emperor of the same era as Ling Qingshui. The person who most likely held this jade token was Ling Qingshui's sealed son. Ling Li. That was why Thunder Ancestor asked her to do so. Oh, don't feel guilty. Since this thing can fall into your hands, it's fate. Grand Elder Nan patted Su Li's thin shoulder gently, you disabled Qin Qing. If this happened before he mastered the authentic Book of Metal, it was a trivial matter, but now it's a big deal. Su Li's eyes flashed. She did notice the golden mark of thunder and lightning between Qin Qing's eyebrows. But with her strength, even if Qin Qing mastered all the marks of thunder and lightning of the 5 elements, he still couldn't survive one move from her. The reason why she was still alive was that she still cared about taking the things of the holy sect of Wind Thunder. If she killed him again, it would be too much. So even if you have just learned the holy method, I have to bring you here and announce to the public that you have understood the mark of divine thunder of fire and are practicing in isolation. In this way, Xiang Hua can't do anything to you. Grand Elder Nan stuffed a rune into Su Li's palm and whispered, "Hide this thing well. It's really unrealistic for you to awaken the mark of divine thunder of fire in just a few days. If Xiang Hua insists on verifying your mark of thunder and lightning, you can secretly crush this rune and cooperate with me to cast a spell on the side. It's foolproof." Su Li was stunned. She took the rune and kept silent. She couldn't understand why Xiang Nan trusted her so unreservedly with a token of inheritance. She was just a stranger he knew for a few days. If it were her, she definitely couldn't do it. Grand Elder Nan seemed to see Su Li's concerns. He smiled and turned to walk slowly along the path. "Let's go. Don't think too much. The token has spirit and you are the master. You must have something extraordinary. That is to say, you are the most promising candidate to inherit the divine thunder in the past 10,000 years. I also want to see my foster father's wish come true in my lifetime. I hope someone can restore the prosperity of Wind Thunder sect." Su Li raised her head and followed him with a smile. "With your blessing, I will make Wind Thunder sect one of the top sects in Qingshui Circle." "Ha ha ha, silly girl. Wait until you inherit the divine thunder." Elder Zheng sent Ling Li away and returned to the study. But he felt that his whole body was heavy and it became difficult to breathe. His pupils shrank. He looked up and saw a figure in a gray robe with his back to him in the room. His face changed slightly. He carefully walked to the man in a gray robe and saluted, "Grand Elder Hua." "Hum." The old man in a gray robe turned around and slapped his sleeve on Elder Zheng's face, making a crisp sound. Slap. "You also know that there is a second Grand Elder in Wind Thunder sect?" Xiang Hua's old face was gloomy. "Where is Su Qingshui?" Elder Zheng lowered his head and was silent for a moment. Then he replied, "I don't know." "You don't know?" Xiang Hua was so angry that he laughed. "Do you think I can't guess if you don't tell me? If you cover up the murderer, Wind Thunder sect will be destroyed by Xiang Nan sooner or later. As the first elder, you are selfish. Don't let me catch you. Otherwise, even Xiang Nan can't save you." "I dare not." Elder Zheng saluted again and again. Watching the old man in a gray robe leave angrily, he was completely disappointed with this grand elder. Cover up? Selfishness? Anyone can say this word, but you, Xiang Hua, are not qualified. Chen Qing has done so many bad things over the years, but you have forgiven him, which has corrupted the sect. Grand Elder Nan wanted to argue with you several times, but you turned a blind eye to it. Now that Chen Qing has kicked Su Qingshui, you finally know to stand up for him." When he heard the news that Su Qingshui had disabled Chen Qing, the first thought in his mind was surprise, and then Su Qingshui was worried. He didn't sympathize with Chen Qing at all, which showed how much he hated Chen Qing. But in Xiang Hua's eyes, this kind of worthless thing is actually regarded as a treasure. These words had been hidden in Elder Zheng's heart for many years, because Grand Elder Nan still cared about the old friendship and wanted the sect to have a backer, so he couldn't bear to fall out with him. Grand Elder Nan, you still regard him as your elder brother, but in his eyes, you are just a stumbling block for him to control the sect. Elder Zheng sighed deeply and hurriedly sent a message to Grand Elder Nan. Next was the game of chess at the level of Grand Elder, and it was not suitable for him to show up. In the center of the volcano, the red leaves of the sycamore tree reflected in the transparent magma like an ocean of flames. In the cave full of the smell of sulfur, the red was dazzling and glaring. If a mortal was here, he would be melted by the scorching air in an instant. But for Xiang Nan, this temperature didn't affect his movement at all. The temperature here is over 1,000 degrees. Qingshui, can you bear it? Xiang Nan looked back and saw Su Li's expression as usual, and couldn't help but be surprised. Su Li smiled, "My physical body is stronger than that of ordinary people." "I see." Xiang Nan was surprised. Physical practitioners always had all kinds of toughness that was hard for practitioners of Dharma to understand. It was easier to show when the practitioner's cultivation was low. She had doubts about Su Li easily defeating Qin Qing. Now, she felt it was normal. According to Qin Qing's character, he must have underestimated Su Qingshui. In close combat, how could Qin Qing, who had a weak physical body, be this girl's opponent? Thinking of this, Xiang Nan was more satisfied with Su Li. The pain of inheriting the divine thunder was beyond imagination. With a strong physical body and a strong self-healing ability, the possibility of inheriting the divine thunder was higher. As long as Su Qingshui could awaken the mark of fire and thunder, she could start to try directly. This sycamore tree is transformed by the divine thunder of fire. Thinking of this, Xiang Nan pointed to the fiery red sycamore tree in front of him that covered the whole cave. "You haven't awakened the mark of fire and thunder, so don't get close to it. Otherwise, the mark of fire and thunder will enter your body in advance, and you will be seriously injured in an instant, which will affect the process of inheriting." Xiang Nan looked serious and exhorted her again and again, "You stay here to practice and don't move. There are enough celestial stones in this universe ring for you to practice. I will come back to see your practice progress in a few days." Su Li glanced at the fiery red giant tree and looked back at Xiang Nan. She nodded gently, "Grand Elder, don't worry. I am not a reckless person." Xiang Nan smiled with relief and turned to leave with his back bent. Su Li quickly spread out her divine awareness. When she saw Xiang Nan fly away from the crater in her divine awareness, Su Li turned her eyes and began to make a gesture with her hands. Pieces of restriction runes fell like black snowflakes and formed a huge black net. Then they broke into pieces and drilled into the pores of the cave, covering the whole volcanic karst cave. The ghost restriction encirclement was formed in an instant. If Yi Che were here, he would be shocked. Su Li's ghost restriction had reached a profound realm. After finishing this step, Su Li narrowed her eyes and said softly, "Su Bai." Chapter 622. You can search for Poisonous Wife in Baidu. Search for the latest chapter. Boom. In this fiery red space, jade-green divine radiance shone brightly, instantly turning the scorching hot volcanic cave into a warm and cool spring. The fiery red space was compressed to an extremely small area of 100 feet, and even the wudong tree became smaller. "Sister." In the green light, Su Bai walked out barefoot. He was wearing a pure white robe, and his green waist-length hair fluttered without wind. The pair of starry eyes on his handsome and perfect face immediately became brighter when he saw Su Li. "I haven't let you come out for a long time. Have you ever blamed me?" Su Li stroked his hair and whispered softly. He closed his eyes comfortably and leaned against her. "How could I? I've never blamed you. If you hadn't risked your life, I wouldn't have grown so fast." As he spoke, he turned his eyes and focused on the sycamore tree, which was suppressed and trembling in the corner. "I can feel that it's afraid and a little unwilling. Perhaps a long time ago, it was a divine thunder more powerful than me, but it suffered irreversible damage in a battle, and its spiritual body was destroyed. In addition, it hasn't been fed by the innate thunder for a long time, so it only has a little spiritual light hanging on, half dead." Su Li nodded. The state of the divine thunder of fire was similar to what she had expected. "Let's get started." Su Bai smiled slightly and floated down on the sycamore tree. "Give me a quarter of an hour to communicate with it, and it will willingly follow you." Su Li nodded gently, her eyes full of smiles. She had not awakened the mark of the fire thunder. But as long as she could come into contact with the divine thunder, the mark was not a problem at all. Speaking of which, she had to thank Grand Elder Hua for giving her a hand behind her back. Xiang Nan flew out of the crater and saw Xiang Hua's figure approaching quickly. Her expression was slightly cold, and she turned her hand to close the volcano seal. Nan, you disappoint me. Xiang Hua stopped in front of Xiang Nan, his old face cold. Do you even have to guard against me now? Brother, it's not that I don't believe you. Xiang Nan looked at his elder brother with a bitter expression. As long as Chen Qing has the slightest bit of talent, I won't indulge Qing Shui. But look at what Chen Qing has done all these years. What? Xiang Hua raised his voice, his anger rising. What's wrong with Chen Qing? He had already awakened the Golden Thunder Mark and was the best candidate to inherit the Divine Thunder of Metal. But now, he was crippled by a female disciple who had only joined the sect for a few days. And you, as the sect's Grand Elder, actually ignored the sect's rules and harbored criminals? Do you think I'm blind about who's right and who's wrong? You're blind. Pain appeared in Xiang Nan's eyes. What did foster father teach us? Character is the most important thing. No matter how talented Chen Qing is, he can't be nurtured. Aren't you afraid of nurturing an ingrate? Then how can you guarantee that Su Qingshui is not an ungrateful person? Xiang Hua sneered, I don't want to argue with you, get out of my way. Since she dared to cripple my disciple, I'll cripple her. Xiang Nan took a deep breath. Her heart felt like it had fallen into an ice cellar. She finally gave up on trying to reason with her brother. Her voice also became cold, she is the holder of the ancient keepsake. No one in the sect is allowed to hurt her. Ancient keepsake. Xiang Hua continued to sneer, it's not clear whether it's true or not. Don't be fooled by someone with ulterior motives. Even if it's true, it's been 10,000 years. How can such an ancient agreement be counted? Xiang Hua. You're really old and muddle-headed. You don't even listen to foster father's words. What do you want? Xiang Nan felt a stabbing pain in her heart. How did her gentle and considerate brother become like this? I don't want to do anything. Xiang Hua flicked his sleeves. I only know that the inheritor of the Metal Divine Thunder was destroyed by Su Qingshui. How can I swallow this? If you still care about the past, then get out of my way. The inheritor of the Metal Divine Thunder? Xiang Nan snorted coldly, Su Qingshui is the inheritor of the Fire Divine Thunder. It's fine if you don't listen to foster father's instructions. But you can't disobey the sect's rules and regulations, right? The inheritor of the Fire Thunder? Xiang Hua's eyes widened, and then he laughed out loud, are you kidding me? Su Qingshui has only been in the sect for a few days. How can he awaken the Fire Thunder Mark so quickly? If you don't believe it, I'll make you give up. Xiang Nan flicked his sleeves and swept away the seal of the crater. He said coldly, follow me into the mountain. If you get the verification, leave immediately. The Fire Divine Thunder Mountain is my home field. If you want to fight, don't blame me for being merciless. Okay. Xiang Nan, this is how you treat your brother. Xiang Hua sneered, I'd like to see if Su Qingshui is as evil as you said. Xiang Nan didn't want to say another word to Xiang Hua. Without looking back, he entered the crater of the volcano. Xiang Hua immediately jumped in after him without saying a word. A moment later, in the center of the volcano, the wutong tree was swaying. Everything was the same as when Xiang Nan left. Why is the temperature here a little lower? Xiang Nan walked in front and was a little surprised. But the temperature didn't drop obviously, so he didn't think much. Seeing Su Li sitting in meditation, he smiled and walked forward, saying, Qingshui, come here to meet Grand Elder Hua. Su Li opened her eyes, and a red light flashed in her eyes. She hadn't completely digested the divine thunder of fire, but getting up was not a problem. Hearing Xiang Nan calling her, she walked to Xiang Nan and bowed slightly, saying, I'm Su Qingshui. Grand Elder Hua. Xiang Hua snorted, and an inexplicable look flashed in his eyes, you look beautiful, but I don't know if your talent is as evil as you said. Xiang Nan looked at him in surprise, wondering why Xiang Hua's attitude suddenly softened. But this was the best. He hurriedly said, "Qingshui, show the mark of fire and thunder. In this way, you will be recognized by us for sinking the divine thunder of fire, and you can stay here justifiably." As he said, Xiang Nan pinched a rune with one hand in his sleeve. The rune hidden in Su Li's clothes immediately burned, and a mark of fire and thunder appeared between her eyebrows. "Did you really awaken the mark of fire and thunder?" Xiang Hua looked at Su Qingshui in shock, but Su Li felt that his shock was a little fake. With a thought, the pneuma of fire and thunder in her body rushed to between her eyebrows. Suddenly, Xiang Hua instantly grabbed Xiang Nan's right hand, which was pinching the rune. "Ha ha ha, Nan, do you really think I am a fool? How dare you play a trick under my nose?" Xiang Nan's face changed dramatically. When he was about to say something, he heard Su Qingshui's puzzled voice, "Grand Elder Hua, what are you doing?" "Fraud." "Su Qingshui, you." Xiang Hua turned his head, but his words stopped abruptly. He stared blankly at the fiery red mark between Su Li's eyebrows that was still shining. What was going on? He clearly interrupted Xiang Nan's spell, but why was there still a mark of fire and thunder between Su Qingshui's eyebrows? And the pneuma of fire and thunder was too strong, as if she had inherited the divine thunder of fire. "Look! I'm not lying." Xiang Nan quickly let go of Xiang Hua's hand. Although he didn't know what was going on, he was relieved and refuted Xiang Hua, "What else do you have to say now?" Xiang Hua's face turned blue and white, and he was suddenly at a loss for words. After a moment of silence, he swung his sleeves fiercely and snorted, "Su Qingshui, you are very good." With that, he left without looking back. Su Li looked at his back meaningfully. A black light flashed in her eyes, and she vaguely saw the nature of Xiang Hua. Grand Elder Nan seemed to be a little pitiful. "Qingshui, you did a good job." After Xiang Hua left, Xiang Nan's tense body relaxed, and he said with lingering fear, "If you weren't alert and Xiang Hua saw through the truth, the consequences would be unimaginable." "But, what's the matter with your mark of fire and thunder?" The mark between Su Li's eyebrows gradually faded, and she explained with a smile, "I also have a rough understanding of the method of talisman, and I have thought about what to do if there is an accident. So, I made an extra preparation, but I didn't expect it to really be used." Xiang Nan nodded with satisfaction. Su Qingshui was so careful, and she couldn't help but feel gratified. Compared with Qin Qingshui, such an inherited disciple was what she wanted. Since Xiang Hua left, it means that he won't pursue this matter anymore. "Do you choose to stay here or go back to the Holy Girl Mount?" Su Li glanced at the wudong tree, and her face showed helplessness. "Although I want to get in touch with the divine thunder as soon as possible, it's still too early." "Okay." Xiang Nan also thought so he nodded and said, "Then you go back to the Holy Girl Mount and try not to go out recently, so as not to offend Grand Elder Hua." "I'll take care of it." Su Li nodded, looked at the sea of wudong trees, and suddenly sighed, "The divine thunder of fire is so spectacular, and I really don't know what the divine thunder of metal looks like." Ha ha ha, Xiang Nan was also relaxed at this moment. Hearing Su Li's slightly naive words, he couldn't help but laugh. "Although I can't enter Xiang Hua's Gengjin Pagoda, if you want to see the divine thunder of metal, it's not difficult for me to set up a water mirror for you." Gengjin Pagoda. Su Li blinked, "What's that?" Xiang Nan had complete trust in Su Li, and immediately replied, "Just like the Fire Thunder Mountain, the Gengjin Pagoda is also a holy treasure, which is used to store the divine thunder of metal. However, the holy treasure is in Xiang Hua's hands, and if I go in, I will be restrained everywhere." Su Li suddenly understood, so the Fire Thunder Mountain is also a holy treasure? No wonder Grand Elder Hua was very well behaved and didn't fight even though he was angry. "That's right." As Xiang Nan said, he seemed to recall something, and said helplessly, "These two holy treasures belong to the Thunder Ancestor, and they are powerful magic treasures to win. But in the hands of my brother and I, we can't exert 10% of their power. They can only be used as tools to carry the divine thunder. It's ridiculous." Su Li was moved, but she asked calmly, why? Because of the divine thunder, of course. The wrinkles on Xiang Nan's old face were squeezed together with a smile. He looked at Su Li expectantly. If you can control the divine thunder of fire one day, I will also pass this holy treasure to you. At that time, your combat power will definitely be higher. Looking at Xiang Nan's eyes that suddenly brightened, Su Li inexplicably felt a little dazzling. Grand Elder Nan, the person you entrusted is not a good man. Chapter 623. You can search, Poisonous Wife, in Baidu. Search for the latest chapter. A moment later, Xiang Nan and Su Li left together. After they left, the sea of parasol trees instantly turned into phantoms and disappeared, and the high temperature in the volcano cave gradually subsided. Xiang Nan, who had a poor control of the holy treasure, didn't know this. Su Li returned to the Mount Holy Girl and stepped into the adytum to practice in isolation without saying a word. Seeing this, Ling Li could only restrain his thoughts and continue to stay in the side hall. Bang! As soon as the door of the adytum was closed, the uncontrollable flames in Su Li's eyes suddenly rose and burned in her pupils, illuminating the whole adytum. Su Li's eyes were slightly cold. She waved her hand to cast a restriction to completely isolate the high temperature to prevent the adytum from being melted by the divine thunder of fire. Then she sat cross-legged and sank her mind into the pubic region. At this moment, in the pubic region, red and blue colors converged. Every time they collided, destructive fluctuations would be aroused. Like a small bomb, Su Li's entire meridians were blown into pieces. Then, under the powerful resilience of the physical body, the meridians were restored to their original state in a few breaths. The cycle repeated and slowly blended. Water and fire were incompatible. If she wanted to make them coexist peacefully, the running in must be accompanied by endless pain. But even so, Su Li had no other reaction except frowning faintly. As long as she could achieve her goal, pain was just a trivial matter for her. Master, if you force the fusion like this, how long will it take? Black Lotus appeared at the right time and reminded, it's impossible for you to make the divine thunder of two completely opposite properties to make them laugh in a short time. Su Li frowned slightly, cut the crap. You know I don't have much time. Just show me what you can do. Black Lotus was used to being scolded by Su Li, so he couldn't help but pout. The Black Lotus ring flashed, and a jade slip floated out by itself. This is the elixir matrix, a trick. It's just an expedient measure. If you want to integrate the divine thunder of 5 elements, this method can't help you. A sharp light flashed in Su Li's eyes. She grabbed the jade slip and stuck it between her eyebrows, and a large amount of information immediately integrated into her awareness sea. This pill formation was not a pill formation, but a dantian formation. It was unknown what kind of existence had come up with the idea of turning one's dantian into a formation, dividing it into several independent spaces. However, these spaces were not permanent. They could only be maintained for a few months at most. After that, it would be best for the cultivator to disperse. If one were to forcefully maintain it, the longer it lasted, the greater the damage it would cause to the cultivator. For ordinary practitioners, it is beneficial and harmless, but for Su Li now, it is the best secret skill. Kajai, you really have a lot of good stuff hidden away. Su Li crushed the jade slip and stared at Black Lotus. I hope you can tell me what the real supernatural power of Black Lotus ring is one day. This king, on the other hand, hopes that such a day will not come. Black Lotus said dryly and disappeared into the ring in an instant. Su Li didn't bother to care about him. She took a deep breath and recalled the secret skill in her mind. With a move of her mind, her pubic region immediately changed. A pattern of Tai Chi was faintly sketched above the Black Lotus throne. The 2 balls of divine thunder energy seemed to be drawn and flowed into the yin-yang fish on both sides respectively. The fire in Su Li's eyes gradually faded, and her breath returned to peace. So fast. Black Lotus hid in the ring and saw this scene. Looking at the posture, Su Li can arrange the fire thunder clearly in the evening. This is the most difficult crafty skill to practice. Why is it not difficult for Su Li? Samsara heard the words and couldn't help laughing. Do you remember that it took you 200 years to practice this skill? You also suppressed the divinity in a mess and had to ask me for help. Shut up. Black Lotus's face darkened again. I am a genius. How could he be in such a sorry state? Idiot, don't think that you can fabricate my dark history at will just because you have more memory than me. Hee hee, you know very well whether it's fake or not. Samsara lay on one side and used his 2 claws to pull the remaining half of the life-returning mirror. Now I share the same fate as Su Li, and we are in the same boat. If you don't hand over the real method to recognize me as the master, I can't help but tell on you. How dare you? Black Lotus's face suddenly changed, and he warned sternly. Samsara looked at Black Lotus's cowardly look and couldn't help laughing. Ha, I am the master's life-bonded magic treasure. Why wouldn't I dare? After digesting this small half of the mirror, my magic treasure will be completely awakened. At that time, who knows who will be the boss? Damn it, idiot. Do you really think I don't dare to teach you a lesson? Ah! Don't hit my face. I will fight with you. I will kill you, son of a bitch. The space in the ring instantly became a mess, but the outside world was quiet, and the night fell. In Xingtian Palace, it seemed to be always night. On the dark throne, drops of light shone on the gloomy face of the Lord of Xingtian Shrine. He was careless. He never expected that Ling Li would suddenly awaken his bloodline in the Tianjiao battle and get rid of the shackles of the Lihan sword. The remnants of the Ling family in Xingxian Mountain also disappeared overnight. Ling Li's fate was separated from Xingtian Shrine. The secret skill of life borrowing had a fatal flaw in an instant. In just a few days, there were countless accidental deaths and injuries in the sect. If Fate Ancestor didn't help offset part of the backfire at the critical moment, he might even lose his life. But even so, there were accidents and deaths in the sect every day, and many disciples were in a panic. All of this was caused by the evil son's departure from the sect. What's wrong with being the evil emperor of Xingtian Shrine? I gave you status and strength, but why didn't you feel grateful after awakening your bloodline? Why did you choose to leave immediately? The low and unwilling voice of Xingtian Shrine echoed in the hall. Ling Li, you can't escape. The Lord of Xingtian Shrine suddenly stood up and waved his hand to draw a round portal. He walked in and instantly came to a pure white dome palace. In the center of the palace, there was an altar. On it, a palm-sized golden pagoda was floating in the golden light and rotating slowly. The Lord of Xingtian Shrine glanced at the pagoda with awe in his eyes. Then he turned around and came to the hall, bowing to the white throne. Fate Ancestor, please show up. Swish, as if hearing the call, the white throne flashed a dazzling light. When the light dissipated, there was a white man on the throne. This man's face couldn't be seen clearly. His white hair glowed with a little golden light under the light, which made him noble and dignified. This man was Fate Ancestor, Bai Ming. You finally figured it out. Bai Ming's low voice sounded in the hall. It was inexplicably sweet, but it also seemed to have an inexplicable bewitching sound, which was intoxicating. The Lord of Xingtian Shrine bowed. Fate Ancestor, please save me. Save thousands of disciples of Xingtian Shrine. Ha, I have said that. Bai Ming chuckled and said in a gentle voice, Ling Li was born to be rebellious. Even with the restraint of Lihan's sword, there is a possibility of reversal. But you didn't listen to me at that time. You insisted on doing this and felt happy, so I let you do it. Today, the truth has come to light, and you come to me crying. I have expected it. Fate Ancestor is right. The Lord of Xingtian Shrine kowtowed again and again. He didn't have the majesty outside. In front of Fate Ancestor, he was more like a henchman who only knew how to kowtow. It's useless for me to say more since it has come to this. I only hope that Fate Ancestor can deduce Ling Li's position. I will borrow his blood to unlock the life skill and save the people of the sect. Borrow? Bai Ming's smile was more sarcastic. He already knows that you deceived him. How can he borrow? And it's not only blood, but also life. The face of the Lord of Xingtian Shrine with his hat down showed anger. If it weren't for me, he would have died. I have raised him for 2,000 years. Now it's only right that he returns his life. That's right. Bai Ming's sleeve suddenly shot out a ray of light and blended into the altar tower. The tower suddenly rotated rapidly, and a series of blurred pictures began to appear. The Lord of Xingtian Shrine was relieved when he saw this and said skillfully, Fate Ancestor, what kind of sacrifice do you need? Is it a virgin boy or a virgin girl? I'll find it now. Not this time. Bai Ming stared at the tower and said casually, you have been in a mess recently. How can I distract you again? Before killing Ling Li, maintaining the status quo of Xingtian Shrine is the most important thing you should do. Yes, yes, yes. Milord, you are right. The Lord of Xingtian Shrine nodded repeatedly and breathed a sigh of relief. The virgin boys and girls he had collected over the years had almost been used up by Fate Ancestor. Now it was not easy for him to find them again. After waiting for a while, the rotation speed of the tower suddenly slowed down, but there was no picture on it. Bai Ming raised his white eyebrows slightly at once. Then he seemed to think of something, and a smile appeared on his blurry face. Interesting, Ling Li's position can't be seen clearly. What? The Lord of Xingtian Shrine looked at the tower in amazement. Ling Li doesn't understand the natural law. How can the natural law pagoda not see his position? Ling Li doesn't understand, but someone does. Bai Ming reminded. The Lord of Xingtian Shrine immediately reacted, and his face changed slightly. Su Jouzhou. The person who could make the natural law pagoda unable to find her position, except for the old monsters who were shielded by the Tianqing Valley, was only her. Why is Ling Li with Su Jouzhou? Is it hard to guess? Bai Ming waved his hand and blended 2 rays of white light into the tower, and said casually, Su Jouzhou is covered by the natural law, and I still don't know her true identity. However, what she did was aimed at me. And with the power of the battle in the reincarnation mirror, those old bastards who had been locked in the reincarnation mirror were mostly on her side. As for Ling Li, although his father was not killed by me, it is impossible for him not to hate me. The two of them have the same goal, so it's not surprising that they are together. As soon as Bai Ming's voice fell, the tower suddenly made a clear jingle, fixed in the air, and projected into the nothingness. The Lord of Xingtian Shrine looked at the scene in the projection, and suddenly showed joy. Fate Ancestor's voice was emotionless. I once predicted that this sect would have such a disaster, but I didn't expect it to be because of this. You should know what to do. The killing intent flashed in the eyes of the Lord of Xingtian Shrine. Thank you for your guidance, Fate Ancestor. Chapter 624. You can search, Poisonous Wife, in Baidu. Search for the latest chapter. Holy Sect, Holy Girl Hall. Ling San, has Her Highness not come out yet? In the side hall, Shuizhen held the food box and asked with a complaining face. No. Ling Li opened his eyes and spat out 2 words. He was really not in the mood to talk with Shuizhen, but he couldn't stop anyone from entering the side hall. The cakes I made by myself are wasted again. Her Highness is only more than 700 years old. Doesn't she feel bored practicing in isolation every day? When will she come out? Shuizhen was annoyed and angry for a moment. Then she opened the food box and put the exquisite cakes in front of Ling Li. She said while eating, you eat too. I can't eat so much by myself. It will be a waste if I don't eat. Hearing Shuizhen's incessant chatter, Ling Li sighed and stopped thinking about integrating the bloodline. He picked up a cake and ate it silently. Shuizhen couldn't help but get angry when she saw his reluctance. She snorted, I really don't know what the holy girl likes about you. You are like a piece of wood. You are not interesting at all. Ling Li was stunned and thought of something. He looked up and asked, am I very boring? Of course. You take the side hall with you every day and don't go anywhere, Shuizhen chattered, but Ling Li didn't hear a word. He was suddenly very confused. What did Su Li like about him in those days? In the reincarnation mirror, although he had multiple identities and high positions, Su Li was also the leader of a force, and her force was even more extensive than his. Except for the identity of Child Li, he sadly found that he couldn't think of what could make people like him. Hey! Ling San, don't tell me I've given you a shock. Shuizhen noticed Ling Li's strangeness and quickly swallowed the cake in her mouth. She whispered, I didn't mean it. Although you are not good-looking, your cultivation is not high, and your character is even boring, but you can't resist Her Highness's love. Ling Li was shocked and raised his head. Shuizhen shook her head and said, I heard from senior sisters in the sect that there is no reason to like someone. Don't get yourself into a dead end. Didn't she need a reason to like someone? Yes. Ling Li pursed his lips and smiled slightly. He liked Su Li, and he loved Su Li without reason and without reservation. After thinking it through, Ling Li suddenly felt much better. Even if she was no longer around, he still loved her. As long as he loved her, she would always be around. Ling Li unconsciously touched his heart with his right hand. Hey! Ling San, you actually smiled. Shuizhen seemed as if she had discovered a new continent. She came over with a face full of surprise. Don't tell me you've really fallen for His Highness. I was just joking. Maybe His Highness is just lusting after you. Su Li said. Suddenly, Su Li's voice echoed in the side hall, which scared Shuizhen. She quickly swallowed the second half of the sentence and almost choked herself to death. Li su su shue su 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 li, she suddenly heard li, su li su su ling shi li. I. X, shue out. Shue xd shue. Ling li su li shue spirit. To li shue su. He was wrong. He was a pawn of Xingtian Shrine. He was deceived and used by the Lord of Xingtian Shrine, but he only got pain in return. But Shuizhen was different. Su Jouzhou took advantage of her, but she also got happiness because of Su Jouzhou's use. Yes, happiness. She got rid of Qingqing. Her life was free and rich, which could be described as happiness. In this way, it could be regarded as mutual benefit. Ling Li stood up and walked into the main hall. Although Su Jouzhou used reincarnation mirror to force him, which made him unhappy, he would not be stingy to apologize. Shuizhen, do you know where the Gungjin Pagoda is? Su Li leaned on the throne and asked softly. At this moment, her pneuma was restored to the state of returning to nature. No one in Holy Sect of Wind Thunder could see that she had two kinds of divine thunders. The Gungjin Pagoda. Shuizhen was really upset about the pastry. When she heard it, she was surprised. Are you talking about the Gungjin Pagoda, the residence of Grand Elder Hua? Grand Elder Hua lives in the Gungjin Pagoda. Su Li frowned slightly. Shuizhen nodded and said, yes. All disciples know that the residence of Grand Elder Hua is in it, but no one dares to go there, because the golden qi in the Gungjin Pagoda is too heavy. If one's cultivation hasn't reached the middle stage of Huashan realm, he will be easily injured by the golden qi. Speaking of this, Shuizhen stuck out her tongue. I heard it from the little holy boys and holy girls in the sect, but I don't know if it's true or not. Su Li thought for a moment and waved her hand. It's all right. You can leave now. Yes, Your Highness. I learned a new pastry today. I'll make it for you. Shuizhen blushed as she finished speaking. She turned around and left happily. Ling Li watched her pass in front of him and saw her out of the hall. Then he walked to Su Li, looking at her pale face. He couldn't help but say, you just got the divine thunder of fire. How can you get the divine thunder of gold so soon? Can your body bear it? Xiang Nan's cultivation was still a little low, so he didn't notice the abnormality. From the moment Su Li returned to the hall, he sensed the pneuma of fire and thunder escaping from her. In addition, Su Jojo practiced in isolation for a few days as soon as she came back. It was not difficult to guess the result of Su Jojo's success. Lord Evil Emperor should care about people. The sun really rises from the west. Su Li snorted coldly, "It's my business." "It's none of your business. Do you think I want to?" Ling Li said indifferently with a cold face, "The divine thunder of gold and fire is the most manic. When the divine thunder collides, it is comparable to nature's punishment. The reincarnation mirror can't stand the damage of the second thunder punishment. Thank you for reminding me, Lord Evil Emperor. I won't come here to die." Su Li waved her hand casually and said with a smile, "If you have the leisure time, why don't you integrate more bloodlines? Maybe one day you can surpass me. Then you don't have to be my follower. You can directly take the reincarnation mirror from me." Ling Li's heart jumped. He snorted and turned his head. He closed his eyes and stopped talking. There was a touch of gentleness in Su Li's eyes. But just in an instant, the gentleness turned into indifference and calculation. She had successfully divided the pubic region into 3 areas. But the most famous thing about the crafty skill was its weirdness. When the pubic region was successfully divided, she had a feeling that the elixir matrix could only last for 1 year at most. That was to say, in this year, she must find a new container to hold the divine thunder, or directly find the way to integrate the thunder punishment. Otherwise, once the crafty skill failed, she would fall into a long-term chaos of the divine thunder. All her strength would be used to suppress the divine thunder. It would be extremely difficult to deal with the crisis of the Life Palace. However, no matter which of these 2 methods it was, they were not simple. The Gungjin Pagoda, Su Li's eyes flashed. She must succeed as soon as possible. Her original plan was to awaken the mark of golden thunder first, and then get close to the divine thunder of metal through Xiang Nan. But the plan couldn't keep up with the changes. The difficulty of integrating the divine thunder was beyond her imagination. Besides, Xiang Nan was unusual. It was unknown whether he could get close to the divine thunder of metal by forcing her to abdicate. "Ling Li, do me a favor," Su Li suddenly said. Ling Li was stunned. He was about to mention the reincarnation mirror. But when he saw Su Jojo's pure black eyes, which were similar to Li's on her pale face, his heart softened. "Go ahead." In the next few days, Shuizhen was surprised to see that Ling San left the side hall and began to wander in the sect. With the identity of Su Qingshui's attendant, almost 90% of the places in the holy sect of Wind Thunder were unimpeded. "Is this blockhead enlightened?" Shuizhen murmured and didn't think too much. Recently, she was obsessed with making snacks for His Highness. Every time she heard His Highness's praise, her heart was as sweet as honey. At first, the disciples of the holy sect of Wind Thunder felt strange. But later, they found that Ling San really just wandered around and didn't affect other disciples' practice. So, they let him wander around. But no one noticed that every place he stopped would pass through the Gungjin Pagoda if connected. In the empty mountain forest, Ling Li's divine awareness swept around for a moment. He turned his palm, and a pure white jade slip appeared in his palm. The last one. According to Su Jojo's instructions, he changed his palms for a moment and put the pure white jade slip into the ground. After doing this, Ling Li turned around and walked back as if he had done nothing, but his mind was active. The ancient prohibition is indeed in my bloodline inheritance, but it is not detailed. I didn't expect that Su Jojo would know such an unpopular secret skill. Is she a disciple of an old monster living in the last era? Or I? Ling Li frowned. It seemed that he didn't want to think about it and left quickly. In the blink of an eye, the holy sect of Wind Thunder was quiet and peaceful. Shuizhen didn't know why she was so sleepy today and went to bed early. The rest of the handymen also returned to the resting place. After meditating for a while, they fell asleep unconsciously. In the night, the cold wind blew Su Li's robe with thunder pattern. Ling Li stood beside her and stared at her profile. He said in a deep voice, "Are you ready to take action?" "Yes," Su Li responded. She looked at the direction of the Gengjin Pagoda with her dark eyes, and the black light flickered in her eyes. "You stay in the hall. If something happens, help me to protect Shuizhen and others." Ling Li was stunned and kept silent for a moment. He said, "Don't worry about Shuizhen and others. Anne, I was wrong to quarrel with you a few days ago. I apologize to you for that." It was Su Li's turn to be stunned. But she quickly came to herself, turned around uncomfortably, and flew away. The mountain peak where the Gengjin Pagoda was located was completely silent. In the invisible underground, the pure white jade talisman was rapidly moving, leaving behind specks of white light that rose up under the moonlight, gradually covering the entire mountain peak. Xiang Hua sat alone on the first floor of the Gengjin Pagoda. Suddenly he opened his eyes and frowned at the cold moonlight outside the pagoda. Nothing had changed, but he always felt a little uncomfortable. He got up and opened the door of the Gengjin Pagoda. When he was about to go out and have a look, a white palm appeared out of nowhere and pressed against the door. "You." When Xiang Hua saw Su Li, his pupils suddenly shrank. When he was about to pinch the incantation to control the Gengjin Pagoda, he saw Su Li smile. Countless black runes poured into his body and he couldn't move in the blink of an eye. "Grand Elder Hua, it seems that you have noticed it long ago." Su Li strolled into the Gengjin Pagoda as if she was back home. She looked at Xiang Hua with ease. "You seem to be able to keep your sanity. Unlike the Grand Elder of Mei sect who is hopeless, the poisonous substitute insect didn't corrode you deeply." A trace of panic flashed in Xiang Hua's eyes, and he quickly denied, "What poisonous substitute insect? What did I notice? Don't slander me. This is my residence. Su Qingshui, don't make trouble." "Ha ha ha," Su Li covered her mouth and chuckled, "If you didn't recognize me, why didn't you scold me first, but use the Gengjin Pagoda? Your acting skills are terrible." Xiang Hua's expression suddenly froze, and he was speechless. Chapter 625. You can search, Poisonous Wife, in Baidu. You can search for the latest chapter. Judging from your expression, I should be right. Su Li smiled. "Xiang Hua, do you think it's better to become a puppet of the Life Palace, or do you want to get rid of the poisonous substitute insect and become a free man again?" Xiang Hua opened his mouth and wanted to say something, but then he thought of something. A look of horror flashed across his face, and he didn't say a word. "The poisonous substitute insect prevents you from leaking the secret." Su Li took a chair in front of Xiang Hua and sat down. She looked calm and indifferent. "To be honest, I'm not sure if I can isolate the influence of the poisonous substitute insect, but you can have a try. Although the price of trying is likely to be your life, in your heart, your life should have already entered the countdown. So, are you willing to gamble? Or continue to wait for death?" Su Li's words seemed to hit the bottom of Xiang Hua's heart, which made him struggle. After a moment, he seemed to make a decision, and his eyes became firm. "Have you really used the means? Are you lying to me?" Su Li raised her hand and looked at her nails. She said without raising her head, "Do you think Ling San has been running around in the sect these days?" Xiang Hua was shocked when he heard this. Of course, he knew who Ling San was. The rumor that the holy girl Qingshui recruited a boy pet as soon as she set up the mountain spread like wildfire in the sect. Of course, he had heard of it. But until now, he understood Su Jojo's intention. This woman was so farsighted that ordinary people couldn't compare with her. It was too terrible. Perhaps because of this wonderful misunderstanding, Xiang Hua inexplicably had a little confidence in Su Li. He took a deep breath and tried to say with a trembling voice, Bai Ming." Time seemed to be stagnant. After Xiang Hua was nervous for a few seconds, he was surprised to find that it really didn't hurt. At the beginning, when he was eroded by the poisonous substitute insect, he also wanted to confess. But even if he thought of the name of fate ancestor, he would feel pain in his awareness see, and even heard the sound of breaking. In desperation, he could only choose to compromise. But now he said the name above board, and there was no problem at all. Su Li looked at Xiang Hua's happy face thoughtfully. She knew nothing about the poisonous substitute, but Bai Ming was good at the skill of fate. She guessed that the poisonous substitute was probably mixed with the skill of fate. As long as the Tower of Gengjin was temporarily sealed by the Forbidden Heaven, Bai Ming would not be able to detect the change of Xiang Hua. Now that he had tested it, it was as he had expected. However, just one example could not prove anything. He still needed to verify it further. Su Jojo, you really deserve to be the Lord of Ni sect. No one has ever successfully countered Bai Ming's spell, but you have broken this rule. Xiang Hua's expression returned to normal, revealing a sincere expression. Although your method is very effective, this old man is not sure how long it will last. I'll tell you everything you want to know. Su Li's eyes flashed. How did you get hit? I don't know either. Xiang Hua's face was full of pain. I only remember that one night 1,000 years ago, I suddenly felt very tired. Practitioners rarely feel tired unless they are in a big battle. I felt something was wrong at that time, but I couldn't resist the sleepiness and fell asleep. When I woke up, nothing changed. But later, when some orders kept coming to my mind, I realized that I was controlled by the fate ancestor. Su Li nodded gently and suddenly asked, that Qin Qing is also a member of the Fate Palace? Xiang Hua was surprised and immediately admitted, yes. But I haven't told anyone about this. How did you guess it? It's not hard to guess. Su Li looked at Xiang Hua with a smile. In my opinion, your anger is too fake. Even if your sister Xiang Nan controls the magic treasure of divine thunder of fire, you don't even try it and leave directly. This is not like the reaction of losing a precious disciple, but more like dealing with a task. Xiang Hua was stunned and couldn't help but wonder if his acting was really bad. But his sister was indeed deceived. As the saying goes, the onlooker sees the game clearly. Su Li stared at Xiang Hua. Your sister didn't notice it, but one day, your head will explode like the Grand Elder of Charm sect. A worm will crawl out of it and clamor in front of Xiang Nan. Can you accept such a picture? Xiang Hua's face was pale and he shook his head repeatedly. No, no. Then, the next step is simple. Su Li smiled and squinted her eyes. She pointed to the door leading to the upper level of the Gengjin Pagoda. If I leave the divine thunder of metal with you, it will be taken away by Bai Ming sooner or later. It's better to give it to me. Maybe I will kill him before you completely lose your mind. At that time, the poisonous substitute insect will laugh, and you can save your life. Xiang Hua's face darkened. He didn't doubt Su Jojo's ability. If Su Jojo was given more time, this evildoer might really kill Bai Ming. But what if the poisonous substitute insect took him to be buried with Bai Ming after Bai Ming died? This question turned in Xiang Hua's mind several times, but he didn't ask it in the end. No matter what the result was, it wouldn't be worse than now. Thinking of this, Xiang Hua's face flashed with determination. With a move of his heart, the restriction leading to the upper level disappeared. Su Li, who thought she needed to talk more, was surprised for a moment and nodded, thank you. But I have to trouble Grand Elder Hua to stay here for a while. When I get the divine thunder of metal, I will set you free. No. Someone will definitely come to the Gengjin Pagoda tomorrow. At that time, I will be exposed. Xiang Hua shouted, but Su Jojo disappeared directly in the door as if she didn't hear it, leaving Xiang Hua frozen in place like a sculpture. Passing through the door, Su Li quickly came to the place where the divine thunder of metal was stored. Gold was mainly sharp. Therefore, the body of the divine thunder of metal stored in the Gengjin Pagoda was a sword. Tut, the body of the divine thunder depends on the spirit's own will, and the body of the divine thunder of metal as a sword is even rarer. Master, you have picked up a treasure again. Looking at the body of the golden sword of divine thunder, Black Lotus couldn't help but show up and say, it's a pity that this thunder spirit was also broken up and lost its own consciousness. Otherwise, its power is comparable to the most precious treasure. Sister, I'll start now. Su Bai didn't need Su Li to call him this time. He directly showed his body and sank into the communication with the divine thunder of metal. The gold and green reflected each other, shining on Su Li's white face, bright and dark. She looked at the divine thunder of metal in silence, and no one knew what she was thinking. Time passed gradually. Xiang Hua couldn't move his body, and could only watch the sky outside gradually turn white. It was dawn. If an elder or a disciple came to visit, he and Su Jojo would immediately be exposed. He didn't know whether Su Jojo's trick last night was still there. If it was still there, he could confess to Xiao Nan, and she would not continue to be disappointed. While Xiang Nan was thinking, he suddenly heard something in his ear. He turned his eyes reluctantly, and saw Su Li coming out of the door. She stretched out her hand and pointed at him from a distance, and his body immediately returned to normal. I'm leaving first. You'd better cover here in the Gengjin Pagoda, in case you can't answer when Grand Elder Xiang Nan asks. After saying that, Su Li's figure flashed and disappeared. Xiang Hua's eyes widened, and he hurriedly came to the top of the Gengjin Pagoda. Seeing that the altar was empty and the shadow of the divine sword was gone, he was dumbfounded. Divine thunder of metal. The most rebellious divine thunder of metal was taken away by Su Jojo? Why did all the holy children and holy girls who wanted to integrate divine thunder of metal in the past fail, but why did Su Jojo seem to do it effortlessly? It's only been 2 hours. Xiang Hua couldn't help but sigh. Suddenly, his body shook, and he looked shocked. It only took Su Jojo 2 hours to take away divine thunder of metal. Before that, she had been to the place of divine thunder of fire. Didn't it mean, in the Holy Girl Mount, Ling Li just sensed Su Li's pneuma, and saw a white shadow flash into the adytum and slam the door. Su Jojo, he couldn't help but look worried. When divine thunder and fire thunder merged into one, the pain caused by the fiery collision of the two made him shudder with fear. But Su Jojo did it without hesitation. What was driving her? Why did she have to do it to this extent? Master, the legend about divine thunder of 5 elements is too vague. Why do you have to gather all the divine thunder? Do you think you can deal with Fate Ancestor after gathering all the divine thunder of 5 elements? Seeing Su Li's face getting paler, Black Lotus couldn't help but feel a little uncomfortable. Although her pubic region was protected by the crafty skill, the torture brought by the divine thunder when it entered her body was not a little bit. No reason. Su Li slowly breathed out a mouthful of turbid air, and her eyes were dark and deep. She just had an intuition that if there was no divine thunder of 5 elements, she would be in danger. Whether in the previous life or this life, she had always been very cautious. Even if the divine thunder of 5 elements brought her more disadvantages than advantages, she always felt that it was right to do so. Seeing Su Li fall silent after saying these words, Black Lotus was speechless for a while. Then, he didn't have the heart to disturb her to heal the burns in her body, so he fell silent. A few days later, Su Li's face recovered a little ruddy, and she looked no different from usual. Then, she went out of practice. Even with her physical body, the recovery of the burns left by the 3 kinds of divine thunder was obviously slow. However, she didn't have so much time to wait for recovery. Today, she found Xiang Nan and was ready to leave the holy sect of Wind Thunder. Grand Elder, the mark of fire and thunder hasn't been awakened for a long time. I want to go out to practice for a period of time. Seeing Su Li's firm face, Xiang Nan couldn't help but nod. Well, you have been a casual practitioner for the past 700 years. I don't need to remind you of the dangers outside. Remember to go back to the sect after a period of time. Su Li nodded and was silent for a moment. Suddenly, she said, I will bring hope to the holy sect of Wind Thunder. Xiang Nan was stunned, and then he couldn't help laughing. He said in a warm voice, I see. Go ahead. Okay. Su Li responded and left without looking back. In the Mount Holy Girl, Shuizhen looked at Su Li with red eyes. Your Highness, do you really want to go out to practice? Su Li touched her head, and her usually indifferent eyes looked a little gentle. When I am not here, you have to be cautious and practice more. Although the food is good, it can't bring you confidence. Do you understand? It was the first time for Shuizhen to hear someone exhort her like this. She couldn't stop crying. Su Li sighed softly and turned to fly away. Ling Li's eyes flashed, and he immediately followed her. Shuizhen, who was still crying, didn't see this scene. Junior sister apprentice Qingshui, are you going down the mountain now? Ban Qian asked and stopped Su Li in front of the mountain gate. Then he glanced at Ling Li in surprise and said, Ling San is going too. Senior fellow apprentice, I can't think of a way to deal with the Fate sect if I stay in the sect. Su Li nodded and said with a smile, maybe you should go out for a walk. Maybe you can gain something. Ban Qian was upset. Why did junior sister apprentice Qingshui's words seem to imply something? But when he thought about it carefully, there seemed to be nothing. That's all. Senior fellow apprentice, see you in the future. Su Li stepped around Ban Qian who was still in a daze, and threw the identity jade token on the big tactical matrix for the protection of the mountain. The big tactical matrix rippled and opened a vortex. The moment Su Li was about to step in, her face suddenly changed slightly. No, this is not the door to go out. Ling Li also noticed something wrong. He shouted coldly and was about to pull Su Li back quickly. But at this moment, the vortex suddenly buzzed and an irresistible strong suction came out. Su Li and Ban Qian, who was still in a daze, were sucked into it and disappeared. You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.